of engaging in the election. These are just ways of making sure that people get their preferences counted as they wish, even if the president is attempting to create a media environment designed to frighten.
Well, so many 1A listeners are concerned about this exact question. I think they've seen the images in Los Angeles. They're seeing the images here in the District of Columbia, and they're looking forward to the election. Lisa says if Trump decides to post National Guard or ICE outside of polling places, that will scare people of color from voting. What can be done to try to prevent this? And Jim has a similar concern. What's to stop Trump from sending ICE officials to oversee any count and report the totals that Trump considers correct? Let that be untangled by the courts long after the fact. So this all sort of goes to what you're talking about, Justin, but your colleague, Rick Hasson at UCLA, who's a similar legal expert to you, worried out loud in the pages of the New York Times just a couple of days ago, specifically about cities like Milwaukee or Philadelphia, big cities with lots of black folks and people of color in swing states. And that what we're seeing now in cities like Washington could transfer to an intimidation factor or a suppression factor in those places. What do you have to say to those concerns directly?
So I think that I understand the concerns. I absolutely understand the concerns. And I think it's reasonable to believe that Trump will try unlawfully to deploy the military in an attempt to scare people in a bunch of ways, including potentially around the elections. So I don't want to poo-poo the concerns. But, when Milwaukee's a big city, Philadelphia is a real big city. And when there were National Guard troops in LA, the actual level of chaos in the streets was a little bit lower than trying to get into a Trader Joe's parking lot on the weekend. It's not, you can't actually manifest power using National Guard troops who don't want to be in the situations they're in, who aren't trained for the situations they're in, policing their own families and friends and neighbors and colleagues with a few thousand people when we are hundreds of millions strong. And it's really important for people to remember that. So I have no doubt that there will be an attempt to project power, but that's very different from exercising it in a way that effectuates control. And as for ICE monitoring the count, election officials have security, and they won't let people who aren't authorized to be in those rooms. They can't magically, there's no spell that ICE can cast to magically walk in and seize control of ballots.
I saw Kim give a very vigorous nod there. I just want to wrap in this last minute we have. We got this from Ron in Dallas, who says on the reasons why Trump might be doing this now, the possibilities are: 1, he thinks he can get an advantage; 2, it is a distraction; 3, someone else in his administration advised him to; or 4, Putin told him to. And I want to get to the distraction piece because I don't want us to forget the way the Voting Rights Act was gutted in 2013 by the Supreme Court. We've talked a lot on the show about what this has meant for Americans. But in just a few sentences, Justin, remind us about the biggest changes to voting rights that are now codified in law.
So the biggest change is a big retreat from the Voting Rights Act. That's right. In 2013, the Supreme Court effectively nullified the most important portion that stops discrimination before it happens. They've got a couple other pieces on the menu before them this term, so the law could well change. It's possible that the law could well change again in a couple of months. But I want to emphasize, most of the voting environment has been, on a federal level, fairly stable. That's a big exception. State officials and local officials are really in control here. And yeah, lots of states have changed the way they do over the last couple of years. But where you live depends on what your environment is. Many people have many options to engage in the election process, and that's going to keep happening through 26 and beyond.
We could probably talk for another hour on this, but we've got to leave it there. That was Justin Levitt. He's a professor at Loyola Law School. Also with us today, Kim Wyman, former Secretary of State of Washington State and a senior fellow at the Bipartisan Policy Center, and Nick Corasaniti, New York Times reporter covering national politics with a focus on voting and elections. Today's producers were Allison Brody and Alexandra Botti, with help from Zoe Kazazides. And this program comes to you from WAMU, part of American University in Washington, distributed by NPR. I'm Jen White.
And I'm Todd Zwillick.
Thanks for listening, and we'll talk more soon. This is 1A.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Workday. Workday is an AI platform for forward thinkers dedicated to transforming the way business leaders manage people, money, and agents today so they can transform tomorrow. Workday, moving business forever forward. From Visit St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, where white sand beaches meet the arts, from the Dali Museum to more than 500 public murals. More at visitspc.com. And from the sustaining members of this NPR station.
News happens fast. So for the next 3 hours, we've carved out a space to talk through it all. And yes, you're invited to weigh in. Jim Braude and Margery Egan are up next with Boston Public Radio, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and members of the GBH Champions and Beacon Circles. These most generous annual contributors lead the way in sustaining GBH as a public media resource available and free to all. Learn more at gbh.org/support.
On a small farm in a Norwegian forest, a family strives to be wild and free, but when tragedy strikes, they are forced to navigate the expectations of modern society. Watch POV, A New Kind of Wilderness, tonight at 10 on GBH2.
Your home for trusted local news. GBH 89.7.
When there's a story that affects you and your family, we're there.
Because local news isn't just about headlines. It's about your community.
And bringing you the news you need exactly when you need it.
GBH News. Online at gbhnews.org. Streaming on the GBH app. And always on GBH 89.7. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Margery Egan, ahead on the 11 o'clock hour at BPR. We're kicking off the week with an end-of-summer check-in at 877-301-8970. As we head into the final week of August, are you the person frantically squeezing every last drop out of summer you can? The climate data shows summer something like 2 weeks longer now than it used to be. How is that impacting your plans? Sue, meanwhile, is driving the zucchini hate train into summer, and you call or text.
And I'm Sue O'Connell, hating zucchini. Call or text, and I'm in for Jim Braude. In March, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was sent to a gulag in El Salvador. After his return to the U.S., ICE officials have rearrested him and plan to send him to Uganda. We'll get reaction to that, plus Trump's D.C. National Guard takeover from CNN's John King. It's all ahead on the 11 o'clock hour of BPR on GBH and NEPM.
Live from NPR News, I'm Corby Kummer. The migrant who was illegally deported to El Salvador and then returned to the U.S. is back in federal immigration custody. Kilmar Abrego Garcia surrendered to officials this morning in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says he is being processed for deportation to the East African nation of Uganda. His lawyer, Simon Sandoval-Moshenberg, says no one will say where Abrego Garcia is now.
The ICE officer stated that he'll be taken to a detention center. We asked the ICE officer which detention center. The ICE officer said that they weren't able to say. We asked the ICE officer for a copy of any paperwork that's being served on him today. The ICE officer wouldn't commit to even giving us that paperwork.
The lawyers are suing to block the deportation plans, saying the Trump administration is being vindictive. The presidents of the U.S. and South Korea will meet at the White House today. They'll discuss the future of their country's 71-year-old alliance. NPR's Anthony Kuhn reports from Seoul. They'll also try to flesh out a trade deal agreed to last month.
One of the U.S.'s top priorities is modernizing the U.S.-South Korea alliance. That includes refocusing the alliance to deter not just North Korea, but also China. Speaking to reporters en route to Washington, President Lee Jae-myung said that, quote, "This is not an issue we can easily agree with," unquote. The two sides are in agreement about denuclearizing North Korea. To lower U.S. tariffs from 25% to 15%, South Korea agreed last month to invest $350 billion in the U.S. Much of that will go to trying to revive U.S. industries such as shipbuilding. But the two allies disagree what exactly will be included in the $350 billion and who will get the profits. Anthony Kuhn.
Scores of staffers at the Federal Emergency Management Agency have written an open letter to Congress. They warn the inexperience of the current FEMA leaders and agency cuts are a terrible risk to Americans. Their letter is called the FEMA Katrina Declaration, and it comes close to the 20th anniversary of the deadly storm's landfall in New Orleans. They warn that without action, Americans could be abandoned in another terrible disaster. One of the most powerful typhoons in decades has made landfall on Vietnam's coast. Flooding has destroyed homes and downed trees. Reporter Jan Kammensen-Brumby has more.
Airports and schools are closed as Vietnam prepares to face the brunt of what the government has described as a, quote, extremely dangerous, fast-moving storm. Over the weekend, some thousands were evacuated across China's southern island of Hainan, as the typhoon whipped up winds and lashed the island, normally filled with tourists, with heavy rainfall. China has since downgraded its emergency response alerts, but strong rains continue to hit southern Hainan. For NPR News, I'm Jan Kammensen-Brumby in Taipei.
On Wall Street, the Dow was down 230 points. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A new law about to go into effect in New Hampshire will ban transgender care from minors, and some hospitals in Connecticut are also scaling down their programs. Globe reports that the changes could drive an increase in patients coming to Massachusetts, where lawmakers have taken steps to protect access to transgender services. And great white sharks are being seen more often in Maine as they head north. Shark sightings off Cape Cod have become increasingly frequent in recent years. New data show the sharks are heading even farther north into New Hampshire, Maine, and beyond. According to a new report from biologists with the Massachusetts Department of Marine Fisheries, the number of white sharks detected off Halifax, Nova Scotia, increased about 2.5 times from 2018 to 2022. Further north, the number increased nearly 4 times over. Researchers say a key reason for the shift seems to be the conservation of seals off New England and Canada, which has allowed seals to thrive and provide a food source for the predatory sharks. Great whites are also protected. A ban on fishing for sharks in the U.S. federal waters has stood since 1977. In sports, Red Sox in Baltimore for the start of a series with the Orioles tonight, and it's Monday Fun Day at the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows, day 2 of the last tennis major of the year. Mostly cloudy with scattered showers this afternoon, high near 80. We're at 76 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Satva, offering mattresses made with eco-friendly materials and handcrafted construction, delivered with setup and old mattress removal included. More at SAATVA.com.
You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I'm here, Margery Egan, with media maven Sue O'Connell.
Here I am.
Here you are. Thank you for coming in again, Sue O'Connell. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim Braude is returning tomorrow from vacation. He and I will both be together at the Boston Public Library. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu is going to join us at noon. Ashish Jha, Dean of the Brown University School of Public Health, will be with us too. And he's going to talk about getting vaccines now with RFK Jr. Doing all these crazy things down there in D.C. regarding vaccines. Ashish Jha will set us straight what we should be doing vaccine-wise. Plus, Oscar winner Chris Cooper and author Ben Shattuck, they have this new movie. Ben wrote it, and Chris Cooper is one of the stars of the history of sound. We're going to talk about that. Wednesday, Elizabeth Warren is going to be at the Boston Public Library, as well as Josh Kraft, who's running for mayor at noontime. A power-packed week, Sue. Mm-hmm. But right now, we're going to open the lines to you guys about the end of summer. We're expecting the end.
It's the end of summer? Oh, no. I have a list. I have a bucket list of things I was supposed to do.
Yeah, I realized I haven't gone to the beach enough this summer. What's wrong? It's over, and I've hardly been to the beach. Anyway, the lines are open. We're asking about, first of all, I want to tell you that we're going to have average temperatures this week. It's not going to be that hot. Last week, before Labor Day, sweater weather, but that's not bad. But overall, our summers are getting longer and hotter. The past 10 years have been the hottest on record all over the place. Greenhouse gas emissions are raising the global temperature, and they're prolonging summer heat. So this new Washington Post article lets you enter your zip code, and you can figure out there how much longer your summers are getting. Well, for Greater Boston, 10 days more of summer. For Western Mass, 12 days more of summer. That's longer than it was 30 years ago. So the lines are open 877-301-8970 about asking how you feel about this. This is a climate change thing. Are you happy the summer's a little bit longer? Are you upset that people are frying on the streets in places down in Texas and stuff? And the big deal that we really want to discuss with you at great length and great depth, of course, is the zucchini overload issue. Now, Sue O'Connell, you are on top of the zucchini overload issue. Please tell us.
All right, I love zucchini. I'm not a zucchini hater.
That's good.
I also want to remind folks you can get zucchini all year long. It's not just the summer squash, not the summer thing. But what I just am dreading is the coming out to my car in the morning to go to work and someone leaving a bag of zucchini on the hood, or going to work. Zucchini. Or somebody at work giving me zucchini bread. Or going to someone's house for a cookout and getting the zucchini. It's like you are assaulted with zucchini this time of year. Why do you plant so much in your garden if you know you can't use it all?
I did not know this until you brought the zucchini issue to my attention today, that we have a national holiday, National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day. August 8th.
Yes.
You might think it's a joke.
I didn't make this up. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. A national sneak some zucchini onto your neighbor's porch day. So, I mean, do you feel the same way about tomatoes? Because a lot of people give away tomatoes.
No.
I'm looking forward to getting my usual stash of tomatoes from friends who grow them.
The thing about tomatoes, and we have a little porch, a deck garden.
Do you grow them?
No, we grow little cherry tomatoes, which are my favorite. I have some for lunch with me today. We've got cucumber. So we do grow things. It's not like I'm anti-garden. It's just that the zucchini becomes overwhelming, and people just keep giving it to you, and you can't get away from it. I also want to note, can I back up for one second, Margery? The thing about summer this year is, even though statistically all parts of North America are having longer heat days, so the summer is indeed longer, we had some challenges at the beginning of this year because we didn't get any nice weekends. It rained.
That's right.
And rained.
That's right.
So I would like
13 Saturdays in a row.
If we're going to get 5 days longer of summer heat, I would like them to be on the weekends so that we can enjoy them.
That's an excellent point. Okay, so you can weigh in on your feelings about National Sneak Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day.
Zucchini.
Or you can talk about, of course, the end of summer and how you feel like you didn't really get to do all the stuff you were planning to do.
Did you?
Or reading the books you were going to read over the summer. Everybody's their summer reading list. I didn't get very far on my summer reading list. Or if you're really thrilled that the kids are going back to school because summertime has cost you a fortune.
Yes, thank you very much.
877-301-8970. 877-301-8970. Let us start with Ryan and Melrose. What do you think, Ryan?
Yes, hi, Margery. Hi, Sue.
Hi.
I definitely am mourning the proverbial end of summer, though the way I think I kind of stay in denial is I say, well, really, what is it, September 21st is the official first day of fall.
That's right.
And I cling on to it because my birthday is in a few weeks, and I just swear that I have a summer birthday.
You do.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. And if you go to the Cape in what they call the shoulder season, September.
Shoulder season?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the exact, it's not like summer. So it's in between summer and fall.
I didn't even know about that.
And it used to be you go to Provincetown in September and it was filled with Europeans and Canadians. I imagine that won't be the case this year. But nonetheless, September's a great summer month.
It's very pretty on the Cape in the fall. Why the shoulder season? I don't get it.
I don't know. I didn't make it up. I just
between your head and your
in between
butt.
It's around.
Shoulder.
It's around. Anyway,
okay.
So Ryan, happy birthday.
So Ryan, how do you feel about National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day? Are you dreading being dumped on by zucchini, or can you handle it?
I think I could handle it. Roast it in the oven, throw on some some oil, maybe some Parmesan cheese, and yeah, I could do something with that.
Okay.
It is delicious. I'm not anti-zucchini. I just am like the overwhelming zucchini burden, because then I also feel like I have to eat it if someone gives it to me.
Can you please give us the correct pronunciation of zucchini again?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Zucchini!
Thank you, Julia Child.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, we have some sound from Julia Child. She is talking about tips for testing the freshness of your zucchini. This is Julia 2. Here it is.
And if you take your fingernail and poke, it goes right easily through the skin, which I don't think supermarkets would enjoy if you did that. But also, another way you can tell is when you cut it. And the seeds, you can hardly even see any seeds there, and everything is moist and delicious and tender.
I just love her. I can never get enough of Julia Child. The number is 877-301-8970. Summer's almost over. Are you depressed? Are you a summer person? And there's only a few days really left when you can hang out and go to the beach. I mean, you were talking about going to the beach yesterday over the weekend.
Yes, we went to
huge
Crane
waves
Beach.
at Crane
Yes.
Beach. Tell us about it. You couldn't go in the water.
Well, the water access was closed due to the rip tides, the rip current, and the tide was so high there was barely no beach for people to sit at. So we went to the beach anyway because we love going to the beach, especially love Crane, and we're members of the reservation, so we're contributors. And the waves just kept coming up and flooding everyone. The kids loved it. We just didn't put anything down. We just waited for the waves to come up and get us.
So you're sitting there in your beach chair,
right,
where you staked out your position on
Correct.
the beach, and then the waves
The
come.
waves just would come up at high tide and just flood everyone. The kids were digging moats around. There was one family that dug this really deep moat around where they were sitting, and it actually kept them from getting soaked. But what I love about when you're like a real beachgoer, it doesn't really bother you, but it was gorgeous to watch.
Here's what I want to know. Maybe they don't do this at Crane Beach, but you see this at a lot of beaches. If you happen to get there early in the morning, like 9 o'clock, maybe 9:30, people come down, or someone comes down and lines up their 12 beach chairs in a semicircle.
I'm never there that early.
And then they leave.
I know.
And then they leave. And they don't come back for 2 hours with this whole crew of people. And, the public beaches are crowded.
Crane is a big beach. So it wasn't on Sunday and Saturday because of the high tides. But, there's a lot of room for folks. I'm okay with that.
Would you do that, Sue? Would you line up 12 chairs in a semicircle?
I don't like to go to the beach with that many people, so I don't have that kind of problem. But I'm okay with that, Margery. All right, we have an anonymous texter. What a curmudgeon. Oh, me. I'm the curmudgeon.
Yeah.
She's starting to sound like Jim. Not the first time I've heard that. I would love a bag of zucchini in my car. Neighbors sharing is wonderful. Listen, anonymous texter. I love zucchini. I love getting zucchini. I don't want 7 bags of zucchini for my 3-member household, because then I feel guilty because I can't.
Yeah.
I want to eat it because they grew it and they leave it. And plus, they're kind of bullying you with the zucchini because you didn't ask for it.
Well, you feel guilty.
You
feel guilty.
Yeah, you feel guilty. You're starting to sound Italian.
How
Margery.
much grilled
guilty.
zucchini can you make now? You can't really freeze zucchini.
I don't know if you can.
I don't think you can freeze.
You could jar it. Right? But no one does that anymore, do they?
And you can't freeze tomatoes either, but they'll stay a long time in the refrigerator.
Not really sure.
877-301-8970. Are you upset about the end of summer, or are you fine? Do you want to get rid of the hot weather? John from Danvers says 30 years ago, we ran the AC at night about 10 days each summer. Now it is every night all summer long.
That's true.
Which is true. You have
that electric bill. My electric bill in July was the highest it has ever been.
Steve in Dartmouth points out that we're leaving something out, and the zucchini dumping that the people who have gardens do. Apparently, green beans are dumped on your willy-nilly on your home as well.
And what cracks me up about the green bean dumping is, other than the 3-bean salad that you make every summer how often do you really eat green beans?
Well,
we get them for Thanksgiving, we get them for Christmas, but so you're growing green beans, and then what do you do with them?
You save them for your awful green bean casserole at Thanksgiving. Peter from Connecticut says, I'm retired and live at the Connecticut Rhode Island shore. Beach season begins the day after Labor Day, when all the vacationers are gone and the kids are back.
I'm with you, Peter.
At school.
Sounds great.
Steve is also from Rhode Island. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
I got a big garden out back. we grow zucchini every year, and I just heard you say that you can't really do anything with it, freeze it, but we do.
What do you do? Tell us what.
Oh, you freeze it. You do freeze it.
Tell us how you do it.
No, not the actual zucchini. We have a recipe for chocolate zucchini cake. It's online. We found it on there.
Ooh.
And it's the most moist, delicious, decadent chocolate cake you've ever had. It's got a chocolate mousse frosting on it, so it's not too sweet.
Really?
It tastes like a dark chocolate. Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay, chocolate zucchini cake. We'll look for that. Online. Somebody said they have a spirited zucchini and summer squash. Oh, spiralized. What's spiralized zucchini?
When you cut it so that it comes in spirals.
Oh, okay. All right. Spiralized zucchini and summer squash casserole. You ever heard of that? Steve? Nope, Steve is gone. We just lost Steve.
We lost Steve, but that's
I'm sorry,
okay.
Steve. But the chocolate cake, zucchini bread. One year when I was in college, or didn't have a lot of Christmas money, I made zucchini bread for 15 people, wrapped them in bows, and then gave them a picture of myself. Wasn't that weird?
No, I can get behind that.
Yeah, I worked at the newspaper. I had the guy take a picture of myself, gave it to all the maiden-aunts. They thought it was great. Oop, my phone is ringing.
Your phone is ringing. That's okay, Margery. Don't worry. So Mark in Westwood wants to know why not just re-gift the zucchini, share the love, pass it on. See, this is like a cult. The zucchini thing is like a cult. I'm telling you, it's one good thing, and then everybody wants you to bully others.
You want to mark it on your calendar. August 8th is National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day.
It's coming.
If you missed it, it's still not too late to sneak that zucchini on your neighbor's porch.
Paul in Fort Lauderdale, I showed my neighbor my zucchini. She pointed and laughed. Okay, let's go to Jesse in Cambridge. Jesse, how was your summer?
Hi, Jesse.
Well, I officially had summer yesterday because I went to Nantasket, and I love waves. I'm not a great surfer, but I call it wave wrestling is what I do. And it was fantastic. And I got early. I went in 3 times and rested in between. And the last time I got out, I couldn't stand up. I was so tired.
Really?
I crawled out. I sat on a rock, and 2 very nice people helped me up the stairs.
Oh no! So you were beaten down by the waves, Jesse, is what you're saying?
Oh, well, yes.
Yeah.
There were. Yeah, it was a lot of thrashing, but I love it. It was a perfect day, and of course, I told people, "Oh, I'm all right. I'm okay."
Well, this is
well, Jesse. I'm glad you're alive to tell us about this. So
yeah, thank you for the call. This was all Hurricane Erin, which was way out at sea. Thank God,
but didn't hit us. But it really was. I mean, I grew up in Revere, as many people know, and so I'm used to seeing some waves and some surf from hurricanes. But it was pretty wild yesterday and Saturday. So, and you think, and I think to Jesse's point, you think it's not that bad, and even walking ankle deep on Crane Beach, the wave would come in and you would almost get knocked over just at your ankles from the force of the wave.
You know what? One of the things is
of nature.
When you go to the beach, and you probably saw this at Crane Beach over the weekend, but every time I go to the ocean beach, wherever it is, if it's on the Cape or if it's in Westport or wherever it is, there's always 10 different holes being dug around the beach by kids. I mean, it is like the whole thing. They'll be up to their neck by the time the day is over. It's just, there's this, you get there and you got a shovel and they just have to start digging.
It's great.
What is that about? What is that about?
Well, they're on
a natural urge to dig.
They're going to build something. Kids want to build. I mean, I'm telling you, the seating areas really worked yesterday, so it kept the kids busy, even though they couldn't go in the water. So
the waves went into the moat and protected the people that were sitting in their beach chairs.
It worked out well. All right, Susan from Merrimack. Susan, welcome to BPR. We're talking about the end of summer and the endless supply of zucchini.
Zucchini!
Zucchini!
Good morning.
Zucchini! What a ridiculous name! Who named it zucchini? That is not a very dignified name for a vegetable, if you ask me. Susan, do you know why they named zucchini?
I do not know that.
Yeah, I think it's an outrage.
You were talking earlier about freezing things.
Yes,
and I have shredded zucchini and frozen it. And it's good for using in recipes like zucchini bread that might taste good, Sue, in the middle of December as opposed to right now.
Well, that's the point.
So you can freeze it. I did not know that. Thank you, Susan, for that.
Yeah, the other one that you mentioned was tomatoes, and tomatoes freeze beautifully. If you take the stem end out of the top, just throw them in a freezer bag. When you take them out, run them under hot water. The skins slip right off.
Really?
And then I throw them in a saucepan, let them thaw, and a lot of the water will come off. The water tastes just like tomato juice, only it's kind of a clear yellow. But then you just have the meat of the tomato, and you don't have to cook your sauce so long.
Oh, I like
that.
A lot of the water's already out.
You're quite the cook, Susan. That's very impressive. Very impressive. Thank you very much for the call. We have the answer because our producer, Jamie, speaks fluent Italian, and he is an Italian authority on all things Italian. He says zucca in Italian means squash, and zucchini means little zucca.
There you go, little zucca.
Nonetheless, I think we can blame this on the Italians. They still did a bad thing to the poor zucchini.
Margery, here's a tomato from my garden. Here you go. We can
you.
try that.
Thank you.
It's very delightful. You can tell. It's just a little bit of tomato. So I'm all for the gardening. I don't want people to think I'm a hater on the gardening. I just don't want to be assaulted by zucchinis.
Okay, let us go to Kate. I think that's true. I mean, you don't want to. You feel guilty about it when people just shove these things. You feel like
can't eat them.
You have to do something.
And
with
I was
them.
raised by Depression-era parents.
That's right. You don't want
got to eat everything.
You don't want to throw anything out. That would be very much food waste. Although you could compost, and you feel a little less guilty.
I do that too. But
isn't that great?
It is.
It relieves a lot of guilt about the food you don't eat.
Well, it's keeping track of
Just
these
this
things
morning,
makes you
I was
feel bad.
Rushing out with my banana peels. I felt very self-righteous.
Oh, our banana peels go into our garden, so it works out well. There you go. All right, Kate. I don't do any work in this garden. I just want to be very clear. I just go out.
Fertilizer?
You can put the banana into water, and then you ferment it, and then you pour it into certain plants.
Wow. I've heard about coffee grinds with rhododendron.
I don't do any of these things.
Okay. Kate in Bridgewater, thank you for calling.
Hi. So on that vein, with all of these great tips, I would suggest for the neighbors that have too many zucchini, go to their local food bank and donate those for free.
Will they take them? Will they take them from private gardens? Will they take them?
Some will. I know in the city of Brockton, that's what I did. My husband and I have been doing this for 30 years.
Wonderful.
The other thing is why do you grow so many? You can have a year where your plants would get wiped out and you have none. So you always have to do 2 plants. The things that are crazy is when you go and you check, and then you go the next morning, and there's one the size of a baseball bat. That's when it gets very frustrating. Of what do I do with this stuff? But you can.
It's a miracle, Kate.
Shred it. Yeah. You shred it and freeze it, and it's great for meatballs. My daughter-in-law gave me a recipe where she hides it in her meatballs, and her kids will eat it.
Really,
so,
zucchini meatballs.
Yes, you can. You can shred up grated zucchini and grated carrot and stick it in with your meatballs and your other seasoning.
Maybe I'll put it in my. I do a smoothie every morning, and I often put vegetables in. I put carrots in. I put spinach in. So maybe I'll start putting some zucchini in there. That was a great
zucchini.
bit of
All right.
advice.
Clearly, we are celebrating National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day here at BPR. But we're also talking about the end of summer, right? We're talking about the end of summer as well. And, here's one who says, and you hear this a lot this time of year, for people that are natives to a particular summer place. Liz is in Maine. She's psyched for summer to be over so we can have our lovely beaches and awesome restaurants back. Bye-bye traffic. Bye-bye tourist. Thanks for your money. Welcome shoulder season. Take your zucchini with you.
See, shoulder season. All right, one more before we go to a quick break. Summer is torture for me. Need to walk around half naked instead of wearing adult clothes. Washing myself 6 times a day. Washing clothes. Hanging them morning and evening. Too hot to think. Too hot to move. Too hot to talk. Too hot to type. Too sticky to care. Greenland sounds pretty good in the summer, but needs more trees. All right, Nelson. Good for you.
That was a thorough examination of the whole situation.
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to take more of your calls and texts next. We're going to eat my tomato from my garden. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She is Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Zucchini!
Brazil, former President Jair Bolsonaro is under house arrest for plotting an alleged coup. In response, Washington has imposed tariffs on the country. Brazilians, though, they're not having it.
Até porque presidente de outro país não deveria.
This woman believes in Brazil's sovereignty and says the U.S. should not get involved. That story, next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds from utility bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And Newport Mansions, presenting the 20th Annual Newport Mansions Wine and Food Festival, September 19th to the 21st at Rosecliff. Seminars, tastings, and a dinner experience with Chef Marcus Samuelson. Tickets at newportmansions.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Sue Collins in for Jim Browdy. Jim and I will both be back together tomorrow at the Boston Public Library with Mayor Michelle Wu. Should be joining us at the library in person at around noontime. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, and we are broadcasting on GBH and NEPM, and we're very grateful we are. We are talking about the great holiday that some of you may have missed, but we know about it now. We're going to celebrate it every year. August 8th, National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day. Apparently this is a problem all across the hinterlands. Mm-hmm. People who grow, apparently one plant of zucchini can produce 10 pounds.
Yes. You know what? I just didn't consent.
And they're shoving it onto neighbors.
That's the issue, Margery. I did not consent to accepting all these zucchini. That's all.
You're zucchiniized without representation.
Without representation. Anonymous texter says, grow too much zucchini, I would leave them in people's mailboxes. See? There's no consent there. All right, let's go to Sue in Acton. Sue, how are you feeling about the end days of summer?
Hi, Sue.
Good morning. Hi.
Hi.
I hate to be, the lone doomsayer, although that previous caller was pretty much the same. I'm not a summer person at all.
Oh, okay. Why
summer
not?
To me means hiding under hats, hiding under sunscreen, getting infected bug bites. I mean, it's just blah. And I'm married to a man who comes alive in the summer. And
how annoying.
And I, close. Yeah, right. So I close my window shades to keep the house cool, and it's dark. And
so, Sue, where would you live? Where would you live if you could live anywhere in the world without a care? What climate would you like to experience on a regular basis?
I love winter. It's my favorite season.
Oh, my God. All right, Sue. Would you like the snow and the ice and the shoveling and the slipping and the sliding? You like all that?
No, it's total denial about all that. It's just the beauty and the quiet and the cold. It's not, I completely ignore the fact about, oh, my God, I'm going to break my neck. Oh, my God, I have to drive today. It's just, look at this. And I'm a huge fan of quiet. So, you get a lot more of that in winter than you do in summer. Let's put it that way.
Well, Sue, thank you very much.
I think, sure.
No, that was a very upscale. That was a very upbeat call.
Yes. Summer's over. She's happy it's over. Looking forward to fall.
Okay. I'm very sorry, it says zucchini non-enthusiast from New Hampshire. I'm sorry, but zucchini is tasteless. And this person claims they're from the home of the now defunct New Hampshire Zucchini Festival.
Oh.
Did you know they had a zucchini festival?
I'm not surprised, because what do you do with all the zucchini? Everybody grows all summer. Zucchini. You have to do something with the zucchini. Look, a lot of vegetables, I wouldn't say they're tasteless, but I seriously put tons of vegetables in my blender every morning, and it doesn't change the taste. It's how you cook them. It's what flavors you add to them. It's what you pair them with that bring them alive.
So what do you pair those vegetables with in your smoothies?
Well, I just put in honey and blueberries, which have a lot of taste, banana, spinach, and then a rando vegetable that's about to go bad.
What's the liquid? What's the liquid?
Soy milk.
Soy milk.
No, I'm sorry, almond milk and coconut milk.
Okay.
And then a flavored protein powder. So it's a little vanilla-esque.
Okay.
That's
Listen to this person. This is a poet. I am bummed. I adore the summer sounds, the crickets, the cicadas, the tree frogs. So soothing in my soul. You know, it's a great sound that you think of in the summertime, the bat hitting the baseball.
Oh,
isn't that a great summer sound?
The crack of the bat.
And the screen door shutting.
You sound like Taylor Swift a little bit right now, Margery, I have to tell you.
I tell you.
That's our song, the screen door slamming.
Is there a Taylor Swift song called The Screen Door Slamming?
Yes.
Isn't that a great summer sound?
It is.
And flip-flops? That's another great summer sound. The flip-flops flipping along the floor. Lewis in the South End, what do you think, Lewis?
Louis,
sorry.
Hello?
Sorry.
Yes,
Hi.
go for it.
Yeah, zucchini is really good. One of the main ingredients in ratatouille. Ratatouille can be frozen in your freezer and eaten months later. It's really great with rice. Your protein of your choice. I like to put beef browns in the crock pot so they're super soft, and then that makes a great meal.
Now, Louis, do you grow your own zucchinis?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay,
so you want to come? So I'm just up in Roxbury. If you want to come up to my house
That's
when
right.
I get assaulted with the extra zucchini, Luis, I can give them to you, and then you can make the ratatouille and freeze it. And look we've come to some sort of detente here around my zucchini attacks.
That's a great idea, Sue.
That's right. I mean, what is it? Do you have a lot of gardens in a lot of gardeners in your neighborhood? These people?
Yes.
Oh, that's the problem.
And then my friends and family who all have gardens, and it's like seriously, you go to a cookout, and you bring a nice salad that you made, and you leave with 7 bags of zucchini. It's just too much. Louise, thank you so much for your call. I'm looking forward to the ratatouille. This is exciting.
Listen to this. Lindsay from Marlborough. You can make a zucchini bread. We know that. Zucchini in place of pasta? A zucchini pasta?
Yeah, you can just do the little curly thing. You can do that with all sorts of squash. And make a vegetable instead of using pasta.
Oh.
You use it's not the same consistency. I always get a little worried about naming things that they're not, like it's not really a pasta.
Here's
but it
one.
does replace one.
Zucchini lasagna boats. You hollow out the zucchini and put lasagna, I guess.
So the problem I'm finding here, Margery, is I don't cook.
Yeah.
So that might be the problem, that I feel like overwhelmed with the amount of zucchini I'm getting. You know what I love is John King is standing by on Zoom, and I can see him wondering why we're talking so much about zucchini. And wondering if he's going to get a crack at this, because I know he's got a lot to say about zucchini.
Okay, we're
Thumbs
leaving
up.
in just a second to talk to John, but we are talking about National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day. It's a big event here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I never heard about it until today. Apparently, we missed out on the zucchini festivals up in New Hampshire, but people clearly, as we can tell by our callers and our texters, zucchini is huge here.
It is
in the city of Boston and in the neighboring towns and cities around the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Not to mention in Rhode Island.
And also want to point out we're saying goodbye to the summer as well. Lucy in Worcester says the only good thing about the end of summer is that it means Halloween is right around the corner. We've already got the decorations ready for sale. So there you go. Thanks to everybody for calling and texting about zucchini and your recipes. I feel better already about that and the end of summer. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, CNN's John King is zooming in for the latest on national political headlines. I'm sure he's got a zucchini opinion as well. I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Jim Browdy. She is Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Zucchini.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, writer Andre Aciman. His novel Call Me By Your Name was adapted for the screen in the Oscar-winning film. He joins us to talk about his new book of novellas, which take us to New York City, Naples, and into a blossoming romance. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition. In Ashby now through September 6th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250. masshumanities.org. And American Repertory Theater with Passengers, a blend of cirque, music, dance, and superhuman skill. The New York Times writes, extraordinary acrobatics provide gasps of delight. amrep.org.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I'm Margery Egan. She is media maven Sue O'Connell. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim and I will be back tomorrow at the Boston Public Library. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu will join us at noontime. And then Ashish Jha, Dean of Brown University School of Public Health, who knows everything about what we should be doing vaccination-wise, plus Oscar winner Chris Cooper and author Ben Shattuck to talk about their new movie collaboration, The History of Sound. Elizabeth Warren's with us on Wednesday, and Josh Kraft will be there on Wednesday as well at noon. We've got a big week coming up. But right now, we're talking with John King, CNN Chief National Correspondent behind the great reporting project All Over the Map. Hi, John King. Thank you for joining us.
Happy Monday. You may hear a little background noise. There's a protest outside of our building, and I honestly can't tell you what it's about. I'm going to try to peek out the window and try to see what it is, but it just started a few minutes ago.
Wow.
Sometimes it's the building next door, which is an energy regulation, FERC it's called. Sometimes they're out there. Sometimes they're here to protest CNN for one issue or another. I'll try to figure it out as we go here. That's my job. But if you do hear a little background noise, that's what it is. There's no Red Sox fans in my office, I promise.
Oh, I can hear people protesting.
Yes. Thanks, John,
I kind of like to see people protesting these days.
Protesting zucchini.
Yes, I was not going to...
Too much zucchini.
Too much zucchini.
Up there, Sue.
Yeah.
I put it on my teeth for it.
I know. I was trying to resist. I was resisting, John, because
they've had enough.
Because I'm waiting for the text like, all this is happening, and you're talking about, and you're mad about zucchini, right? So I'm just... But speaking of things happening and the important news of the day, as we were going to air, we learned that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, of course, the man who was wrongfully detained he was from Maryland, deported to El Salvador in March. Then he was returned to the U.S. He was detained again this morning by federal immigration authorities. And, of course, the question is what's going to happen now? Why is he being apparently deported again? And where would he be deported to? And, Margery and I, at this point, we were talking this morning about we can't even remember what it was they were accusing him of anymore, that this has become such an iconic thing. Can you give us your take on what's happening here and why are they continuing to pursue him?
Well, the why is a great question, and I was just trying to read some emails preparing for the show to try to see the status of that and some other things. I'm going to say it this way, and there will also be some people unhappy with my answer. At least this time it appears there will be a court process, right? Before these things have happened so quickly, and one of the big you want to have an immigration crackdown, that may be your right. Some of these people may well be in violation of immigration policies, but they also don't they deserve due process, right? That's what you hear from Democrats. You hear that from civil libertarian groups. You hear that from a lot of people. Don't they at least deserve due process? And then if they're found to be in violation, boom. He has become a symbol of this, and the administration moved very quickly. Returned, released, and boom. And so we'll follow that as it plays out. I do think, one of the quote-unquote benefits is it does appear that this time the administration is going to have to make its case in court. And yet I know there are a lot of people listening who says the court so far, with exceptions, but a lot of the courts have been in favor of all these executive powers, especially at the Supreme Court level. So this is one of these issues in which Donald Trump is testing his powers. And again, whether it's federal spending cuts, whether it's immigration policy, whether it's deportations, including to countries with which these individuals have zero connection, can the president do these things? This is a theme of Trump 2.0. And on this particular issue, there's a lot of these cases making their way through the courts. And if you talk to some people in the administration, sorry for the long answer, their point is, let's say there's 25 cases and we lose half of them. Some people say, they lost half. Well, their point is, if we win half, we are expanding presidential power and authority to do these things.
Well, hasn't the Supreme Court weighed in on the sending them off to places? We're talking about Uganda to send this guy to, which seems, talk about cruel and unusual punishment to send someone to a country they know nothing about. Before they were talking about South Sudan, but the Supreme Court is okay with that, apparently.
The Supreme Court so far has given the president wide latitude, and so we're going to see as these cases make now. So the people who oppose the administration's policies and who are defending some of these clients in court are now trying to come up with they're trying to come up with new arguments, right? Because they argued what they thought was a pretty clear case about due process or a pretty clear case about no connection to that country, and they've lost. So now the lawyers, this is a challenge for the lawyers too, to come up with a new argument. But it's interesting. I was just reading a thing from our great legal and Supreme Court team this morning about you see from Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh and some other judges, you have second and third takes on some of these cases as these issues go from an appeals court, maybe on the West Coast, an appeals court on the East Coast, and they're coming back up to the Supreme Court. The justices essentially saying, stop. And we issued a precedent on this. It's your job to follow it. So I do think we're going to see a lot as we get a second and a third go round on some of these issues. A giant test for the Supreme Court and for the idea that, if they do set this precedent that people disagree with, where do we go from here? And so we're having this conversation legally. I also think this is going to be a giant issue next year in the midterm elections.
Well, another issue moving forward, John, that is testing the powers of how expansive the presidential powers can be is redistricting, something I think we've always taken for granted when it would happen and states would do the redistricting. I'll say, as a disclaimer, it's always a mess. There's always issues. It's often unfair. Democrats and Republicans on both sides. But now we're seeing something, of course, in that word, unprecedented, with Trump. With the Texas redistricting, all this, of course, to get more Republican seats in the House. He's now looking at Missouri. He's now looking at Indiana. Florida, of course, is in play on this. What does this mean for the future if, indeed, the Trump administration and Republicans are able to just redistrict to get themselves more congressional members?
I think it's another great question. This is one of my passions in that I think the whole thing is messed up. And I think the only way to have a competitive country and to end the polarization is to have more independent commissions and more equally balanced House districts. So the Democrats actually have to win Republican votes, and Republicans actually have to win Democratic votes. And you have to, if you had competitive districts, they would have to at least listen to and respect the other side. We don't live in that world. So that's probably, I used to think of that. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've been making this stupid argument, banging my head off the wall for probably 20 of those 40 years. So let's set that aside because that's not the world where we live in right now. California tried to come up with a system. It was criticized, but Schwarzenegger and others tried to come up with a system. It wasn't perfect. It's never going to be perfect the first time out. And the challenge is to be able to go back and fix it. But now, Sue, you make a key point. The president, because he understands the math, they have a tiny House majority, and he understands what happened to him in 2018. Democrats won 40 seats and the Republicans lost their majority. The president is trying to do everything he can by leaning on red states that have Republican governors and Republican legislatures. Do everything you can to change the map in our favor so that we can try to build a list. And then you see Democrats, guess what? Gavin Newsom in California, some other Democrats in other places saying, well, then we're going to counter that. That's the world we're going to live in for the next cycle, without a doubt. And these maps will be challenged in courts. I would not expect many of those cases to succeed. We've seen even this Supreme Court, whether it's a voting rights issue or a civil rights issue, say no in most cases, that states have the right to do this. So we used to do it right after the census every time. There's no law that requires that, but that was sort of the norm. And if you go back 25 years, Democrats did this when you had more Democratic governors and more Democratic legislatures. So for people who are furious at the Republicans saying, oh, my God, chill a bit, in the sense that it's always been to the victor go the spoils. But the new part here is a Republican president saying, look at the map next year and doing it explicitly for the next election, as opposed to, sort of globally, we won, we're going to, take advantage of our power. And so we're going to have to go through this. You mentioned Indiana, you mentioned Missouri, you mentioned Florida. Texas has passed its plan, and we'll see where the challenges go. Governor Newsom says he's ready to go, and the legislature is actually moving ahead on that plan, and they have to put that on the ballot this November to change the districts for next November, and that'll be a huge probably billion-dollar fight. The time and money would be better spent on other issues, but that's the world we live in, at least through the midterms, it looks like, and it's messy, and I don't like it as a citizen and as a political journalist. I think it gets hard to follow sometimes, but it is what it is for the short term.
Well, from what I've been reading, many Democrats are worried that they just don't have the opportunities, that the advantage is with the Republicans for this redistricting, which could mean that the Democrats, no matter what Gavin Newsom and the people of California end up doing, or other states that have Democratic leaders, the Republicans have a big advantage. So the House could just be rigged next election and the election after that.
If it's a very close competitive midterm election, that could well be true. If you get 5 out of Texas, let's say you get 5 out of Texas and 5 out of California, and that's a draw.
Yeah.
Right? That's assuming the California plan passes. That's assuming the California plan passes. And I don't know that I think they can get it through the legislature. Could they then get it through the referendum? I think is a big open question. But let's even assume for the sake of argument that the California plan doesn't make it to the finish line. So if Republicans get 5 in Texas, a couple in Florida, the most they could get is 1 in Indiana, maybe 1 or 2 in Missouri. So let's give them 10 in a hypothetical argument. Is that enough? If you have a 40-seat swing like you did in 2018, it won't be enough. It won't be enough. The question is, can you get an environment where people feel a little bit better about the economy, a little bit better about Trump, a little bit better about other things, and you have a non-traditional midterm, or more of like a traditional second-term midterm. Biden was between the 2 Trump terms, so I don't know how to characterize this. Is this a second-term midterm, where the swing doesn't tend to be not as big, or is it another first term? It's usually a president's first term when you get the big swing against the next midterm. So I don't know how to characterize it. I don't know if Trump's approval rating stays where it is, which is down right now. Prices stay where they are right now, which is not down enough for many Americans around the country. I don't know that 6 or 8 or 10 seats is going to be enough for the Republicans. It will help them, obviously. It'll make if the Democrats win, their math will be less. But if you can count on one hand their majority right now, and let's say they add 10 or 12 seats through new maps, and I'm not sure they can get that high, but let's, for the worst case scenario, or however you want to describe it, get there. In a traditional midterm year, on average, President's Party loses 25 seats. That's not enough, but that's what they're angling for.
Okay, so let me ask you about something else that is kind of scary to a lot of us. I think particularly if you are a person with not a lot of money is living in the inner cities around America and you happen to be black or brown, this increasing enthusiasm for the president moving his troops now to Chicago or to other blue states, even though, we a little piece this morning said the highest homicide rates are blue cities and red states, not in blue states. But nonetheless, I read over the weekend in the New York Times where they are charging felony charges against a guy who was sitting in a parked car with an open bottle of beer or something, open liquor bottle in his car, and he got into a scuffle, and they're charging him with a felony. Jeanine Pirro, who's big attorney down there, has federal charges against people. It seems like it's a real attack on inner city Americans.
And so I think the point, the same thing about most of these immigration raids, with some exception now, but most of these immigration big raids have been in blue cities and blue states. There are some exceptions to that. This crime crackdown, National Guard crackdown, I can walk my office's steps from Union Station. You walk up the street, you see the National Guard troops up there. Over the weekend, some of them, a limited number, started carrying weapons, which is unusual for the National Guard walking around. The president is trying to make a statement. Is there a crime problem in the District of Columbia? I've lived here for a long time. Yes. Is it the emergency he speaks of? No. So today he signed an executive order trying to do away with cashless bail, no cash bail. Now, the federal government can't tell the city of Boston what to do or the city of San Francisco what to do, but it can say, if you do certain things, we will stop giving you federal grants for justice. So it can use the power of the purse and the power necessary federal dollars that these departments rely on to try to influence opinion. A lot of this is about politics. I know you're both shocked to hear that. A lot of this is also, when did it happen? The president has a problem with his base about Jeffrey Epstein and transparency. The president has a problem across America in that his approval rating is down some because prices have not dropped at the pace he promised that they would. So you can argue he's doing these things as a distraction. But if Chicago is next and what comes after that, and then he's going to have a fight with the city of Boston over certain crime policies or whatever. Again, some of this is to please his base and to show his power. Right, to show his power, and you have Republican governors. A lot of what Trump is doing is about a power play, right? I'm strong. I'm a president. I can do these things. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I drove past the Department of Labor this morning, a federal agency that I drive by every day on my way to work, and brand new, wasn't there on Friday, is a giant Trump face on the side of the building. It's kind of like driving through Pyongyang.
You're kidding.
It is designed. There's also a Teddy Roosevelt. Let me be fair, and it's just Labor Day is coming, and it says he's fighting for American workers. But never in my years here have I seen that on a federal building. Your tax dollars at work. But that is how Trump views these things.
By the way, who's paying for the 200?
We are.
Is it? We're just taking money from some budget to build his ballroom? Is that coming out of taxpayers' money that Trump wants to build next to the White House? Already paved over the Rose Garden.
He did pave over the Rose Garden.
Yeah.
The money, whether there's any political money there, I actually think that he is putting some money into that, or at least says he's putting some money into that. So I want to be careful.
Okay.
As someone who loves that building, I'm not an architect, or I'm not qualified, to give you cultural expertise on beautiful buildings.
Yeah.
Someone who walked into that building every day for 10 years for work, when I was covering it, I'm cringing a little bit at the changes. Let me just say that.
Yeah, the Rose Garden paved over, not what you wanted.
We're paying for a lot of this. We're paying for this. So this is where our tax dollars are going.
But it does seem to me, like I said, this is to see armed troops walking around an American city. You don't see that. And when you see police officers, they have guns on their holster.
And
but they're not
everyone will
walking
tell
around.
you, Margery, if you go on vacation, especially if you're, of a certain income bracket, you go on vacation somewhere. Like I remember years ago, I went to the island of Roatan in Honduras, and it was patrolled by military people. And you feel uneasy.
Yeah, you
don't feel safer.
Or in a place like Paris, where they have armed servicemen outside of synagogues because of the anti-Semitism problem, which obviously are real. But this is just strolling around with guns. It's a whole. I mean, you're there. You must feel the difference in.
Yes, you do. And I think to your point about the gentleman who was arrested with an open beverage in his car, does that case belong in federal court? Does that case belong in federal court at all? Does that person deserve maybe to be fined and maybe to be sent to counseling? Where's the context and perspective here? I do think, again, we're in the heat of this right now, and 6 months from now we'll be able to say they charged X amount of people, and these are the crimes they charged them with, and here's what happened. We will have some context. It's a word that gets lost a lot, but we'll actually have facts and context by the time we get to the next election, and people can make a choice about this. But I will say this, we're having this conversation right now between us. If you look at mega media ecosphere, social media accounts or streaming channels and the like that, all these pictures, they're like, look at the president's crackdown, look at these people, these rogue people being taken off the streets. So there's a very different conversation happening to his base, which is why I get to the point that, we have to be, what does the public at large think about this? What does the Trump base think about this? To me, as a political reporter, how people feel about this a year from now, all of these things is going to have a huge impact on Trump's political power with the American people. In the meantime, he's trying to flex his muscles and keep his base happy at a time they have some other things they're not happy about.
We're talking with John King from CNN.
We can't pass this without the irony, of course, that when his supporters attacked those same police that are patrolling the streets now in Washington, D.C., he decided to let those people off even after he pardoned people who were physically attacked and assaulted and threw things and weapons and so forth at police officers.
He's fired a lot of good public servants who did their jobs by assembling the evidence and prosecuting those cases.
Yeah, we're going to touch on that. I mean, I got a lot of grief for as a number of people did, calling Trump's campaign the grievance tour. Yet he comes into office, and apparently one of the first things to do is to get revenge on people like Bolton. And to your point, people who've been working in the Defense Justice Department for decades, doing their jobs, getting the evidence to prosecute January 6 folks, and they're getting fired simply for doing their jobs.
I was at a sporting event the other day, and a guy walked up to me out of the blue. I didn't know him, and he said, "John King, come here." And I walked over, and he gave me a hug. And I said, "What's your name, sir?" And he said, "I can't tell you my name." And I said, "Why you give me a hug?" He said, "I work in the intelligence community. Keep doing what you're doing." And he walked away. And so I think you have a lot of career people who keep us safe, who do take the criminals off the street, Are they perfect? Of course not. Is anybody in this conversation perfect? Of course not. But and look, the president won the election. He has the right to do things. He won an election in which he talked about issues. And I know, if you didn't vote for Trump out there, you're mad at me that I just said that. The question is, is he overdoing it? Is he overreaching? Is it personal retribution, or is it policy that he campaigned on? And so that's where my job is, right? And you try to keep an open mind about everything. He did win. To the victor do go the spoils. However, is it overreach? And whether it's a Democrat or Republican administration, a lot of the people at the Justice Department, at the national security agencies, the CIA, and all these other agencies whose names you don't even know, who are keeping us safe every day, they stay. They're 20, 30, 40-year employees. We want their expertise there. We need their expertise there. And that they feel a bit rattled, that's a bad thing.
We're almost out of time here, but real quickly, we're going to talk later with someone that has been on the ground in Gaza and has reported firsthand on the starvation there. I am stunned that there isn't more of a charge being led to, because we have leverage, the United States, much more than Europeans, obviously. But this starvation is unfolding, and we're not doing anything.
The President of the United States has shown no interest in telling Benjamin Netanyahu it is time to feed the people. His ambassador to Israel, former Governor Huckabee, the other day seemed to suggest that this was all a farce and the UN's fault, that there was no starvation, or that, yes, Hamas does steal aid money. It does steal. They take one fact. Hamas does steal aid when it comes in. They do take some of it. NGOs will tell you that's the price of admission. If you're trying to get medical supplies or food in, that Hamas is going to take some of it. They have decided to pay that price of admission because they want to feed people and save people, and they have no other choice. But this is, you've seen other world leaders raise this issue. The President of the United States doesn't seem to care about it.
Well, John, we're out of time. I'm sorry to rush you, but thank you very much, and always appreciate it. Talk to you next week.
Thank you, John. We leave John and we leave NEPM, but stay tuned for the fabulous 413 starting at 3. We continue here in Boston. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She's Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Browdy and Margery Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And M. Steinert & Sons Pianos, the region's authorized Steinway dealer, presents the return of the Symphony Hall Piano Event, Friday, September 5th through Sunday the 7th at Symphony Hall, msteinert.com. Don't miss the story of the struggle against airborne toxins and the hazy journey that led to the creation of the Clean Air Act on a new American experience. Watch Clearing the Air, The War on Smog, tomorrow at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Margery Egan. Ahead on hour number 2 of BPR, it's NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Casey. She'll tell us about ESPN and Fox having rolled out a new streaming service. What will this mean for watching the Pats this fall? Also, how a 92-year-old sprinter has the muscles of a 20-something. And of course, we're mourning the loss of jockey Ron Turcotte, who rode the one and only Secretariat to his Triple Crown triumph in 1973.
Dark day around here, Mark.
Dark day.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. Then it's the latest in food and policy news with Tufts' Corby Kummer. And then we're going to get the latest on the ground in Gaza with the UN's Olga Cherevko. It's all next on the second hour of BPR on 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador and later returned to the United States, has been taken into immigration custody. Now he's being processed for deportation to Uganda. NPR's Sergio Martinez-Beltran reports.
Today's development was expected. That's because last week, the U.S. government served Abrego Garcia with a notification requiring him to report to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement offices in Baltimore for a mandatory check-in. This came after he was released from federal custody in Tennessee pending a trial on separate criminal charges. The government also notified him then he was likely to be deported to Uganda. Abrego Garcia has already filed a lawsuit challenging his new detention and the efforts to deport him without due process. That could delay his deportation and put his fate again in the hands of a federal judge. Sergio Martinez-Beltran, NPR News.
President Trump wants to do away with a cashless bail for people arrested in Washington, D.C. He signed an executive order today against the practice, which he described as a pass for violent criminals in the district.
They kill people and they get out. Cashless bail. They thought it was discriminatory to make people put up money because they just killed 3 people lying on a street. Any street all over the country, cashless bail. We're ending it, but we're starting by ending it in D.C., and that we have the right to do through federalization.
Supporters of the policy view it as a measure against financial-based discrimination. President Trump is also ordering the prosecution of anyone who engages in flag burning. Medics and reporters say Israeli attacks on a hospital complex in Gaza have left at least 21 people dead. Those killed include several Palestinian journalists working for international news organizations. NPR's Aya Batrawi has details.
An Israeli strike appears to have hit a live position for Reuters broadcast at a main hospital before the military struck the medical complex a second time, striking a stairwell where more journalists and rescue workers had gathered. Media outlets, including Reuters, confirmed their journalists were killed in Israel's attack on the Nasser medical complex in southern Gaza. The 4 journalists killed were identified as Reuters cameraman Hossam al-Masri, Al Jazeera cameraman Mohammed Salama, freelance journalist Mariam Abuldakka, a mother who freelanced with the AP and others, and journalist Moaz Abu Taha. A Reuters photographer is among several wounded. Palestinians count more than 240 journalists killed in Gaza in Israeli attacks in the war. Aya Batrawi, NPR News, Dubai.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 222 points, or nearly 0.5%. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Boston School Committee is about to get a new member. Today, Boston Mayor Michelle Wu announced the appointment of Rachel Skerritt, an education consultant who previously served as head of the Boston Latin School. Skerritt was the first person of color to lead the school when she was tapped for that job back in 2017. She tells GBH News her identity as the daughter of immigrants reflects a large swath of BPS families.
My mom actually came to the United States from Antigua, and my father's from Dominica. That's a hugely formative aspect of my life and my upbringing, and very important, and I think very representative of a lot of families' stories in the city of Boston.
Skerritt says she's prepared to help guide the contentious plan to close multiple schools across Boston. She's due to take her seat on the school committee next month. Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee and Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont say that they're ready to pursue every avenue possible to challenge the Trump administration's last-minute decision to shut down work on the Revolution wind farm off the coast of Rhode Island. The Boston Business Journal reports that construction of the farm was about 80% complete when federal regulators ordered it to stop. They cite concerns about national security interest. Meanwhile, now that the Trump administration has put the kibosh on Revolution Wind, inquiring minds would like to know if Vineyard Wind will be next. Mostly cloudy, scattered showers this afternoon, high near 80 degrees, passing clouds upper 50s overnight, mostly sunny, 80 tomorrow. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. I'm Margery Egan. I'm here with media maven Sue O'Connell. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim is back tomorrow. We're both going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu at noon. Ashish Jha, expert on public health, is going to join us tomorrow, as well as Oscar winner Chris Cooper, local guy, and author Ben Shattuck on this new movie that they're both, Chris is acting in it and Shattuck wrote it, The History of Sound. And on Wednesday, Senator Elizabeth Warren will be with us at the library, as well as Josh Kraft. Got a lot of people coming up this week.
Very busy. Very busy.
Big week. But that's right. We are joined on Zoom now by Trenni Casey, who's going to talk to us all about the news stuff. Trenni is an anchor, sports news, I should say, anchor reporter for NBC Sports Boston and a BPR contributor. Hi, Trenni.
Hi, ladies.
So, Trenni, is that some kind of sneaky endorsement deal next to you, the snack pack?
No. So my husband, for those of you on the YouTube thing, my husband had surgery in July, and he bought massive things of Jell-O snack packs. None of them have been opened. He never ate them, but they just have been sitting on our counter for weeks. You know, Sue, I might just bring them in because we know what happens when you bring food into a newsroom.
Yes.
People will eat anything. I might just bring them in.
You could just open them and leave them out for 6 or 7 hours, and that's always my favorite thing. How long has this been here? They just eat them. All right. So, Trenni, I hate to be that person, but I have a hard enough time finding what channel my shows are on and what network my shows are on. I'm not like a huge have-to-watch sports fan, but whenever our team is playing somewhere and I want to watch it, I never know where to watch. It takes me 20 minutes to look it up. And now we get this news that ESPN and Fox 1 are marking a bold new era for sports streaming, as the headline says. Can you explain to me what this means and where can I watch my teams?
So, well, I mean, it still sort of depends.
In 2 minutes.
On who you're watching and what you want to watch. But if what you want to watch is a property that is owned by Fox or ESPN, they are combining together. So they're bundling, as we call it now in the streaming world, bundling their services so that you can pay one flat fee. Stop me if you've heard this before, where you can get all of the television you want to watch in one place.
Didn't we used to call that cable? Didn't we used to call that cable? Wow.
I believe we called that
Everything
cable.
old is new again.
But the problem is, if what you want to also watch is one night your team is on Amazon and maybe another night your team is on Peacock from NBC or Paramount with CBS, you can't get it on the Fox One or the ESPN streaming. You can only get. I say this all the time. Like, it makes my head explode that everybody cut the cord. Which I understand. People want access. I have an MLB.com account. I pay $150 for 6 months of streaming so I can watch the Milwaukee Brewers. They're my all-time favorite sports team. I love baseball. I love the Brewers. So if I'm out and about with friends, I pull up my MLB.com app and I can watch the Brewers on it. I can make it full screen. I can watch it on a small screen. I can watch it. I can stream it on my television. I can see it anywhere, anytime. I understand the demand for watching things in different places. But what people are mad about is what Sue's upset about, is where do I find it? How can I see them? And how all these different things that I have to subscribe to. And I'm like, well, you used to get it all in one place called cable. And thanks to you, my industry is dying because you all cut the cord. But Fox and ESPN have done a landmark thing. They're joining forces, which makes me wonder who's next. I have to imagine maybe it'll be CBS and NBC, and then you'll only have to choose. At some point, I feel like it's all just going to go back to what cable was, but just streaming.
But here's the thing. It says in the story that it's going to be $40 per month for this ESPN and Fox combined deal. So if you are a fan of particular I guess I'm wondering whether if you want to watch the Patriots or you want to watch the Celtics, is there any place you're going to be able to watch them for free with your service that you have, or are you going to have to get all these extra things?
Well, I mean, you can still watch them if you subscribe to cable on NBC Sports Boston, unless, of course, they're on ESPN or NBC or Peacock for Amazon.
Right.
But, I mean, Margery, there's nowhere you can get anything for free anymore, right? Like, nothing is over the air. Everything is either cable, regional sports, or streaming.
Right.
But to your point, the reason I think a lot of people cut the cord from cable is because cable became so expensive.
Exactly.
But now, if you add it all up and you're paying $40. Now, keep in mind, ESPN and Fox One doesn't get you any regular television shows.
Exactly.
That just gives you whatever sports you want to watch.
Right.
So you need to then also I think there is a bundle with the Disney, ESPN, Hulu. So I think that is going to be part of their bundle as well. So you'll get some regular television shows, but the problem is everything is fragmented right now. And so if you really like Yellowstone, you have to subscribe to Paramount. If you really like, an NBC show, like I love Modern Family and Seinfeld, if you want to see those shows and you want to see them in reruns, you have to have Peacock. If you want to watch the Olympics, you have to have Peacock or NBC. That's why I feel like at some point, people are going to be fed up and they're going to want everything in one place again. And it's just going to be like one big streaming bundle that looks just like cable.
Or you could be like me and be paying double for things that I don't even know that I'm paying double for. Like, oh, gee, I can get Paramount through my Amazon account, but why do I have Paramount too? And it's like, what? I end up paying, I get this through Verizon. Do I have Disney with commercial? I don't know what I'm paying for. I just write checks, or not even write checks. That sounds so last century. I just let it get taken out of my account and figure it out later.
Oh, I need to go through, honestly. I need to, how like if you're an iPhone user, you can go through and see like all of your subscriptions.
Right.
Like I feel like I pay for Apple TV, but I think through my Chase Sapphire Reserve.
Exactly.
Like I get Apple TV. Like there's all these other ways
no
you can get. But they count on that, right? They count on us not looking
bureaucracy.
at $12 here, $20 there. We just pay it. It comes out automatically. We don't pay attention to it. And then suddenly you're paying at the end of the day exactly what you used to pay for.
Or more.
For cable.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on and talk some more about this WNBA relocation thing. We've been following the story with you, Trenni. And, it's a business story. It's a women's sports story. It's a Boston against the world story. There's a report in the Boston Globe written by Christopher Gasper talking with the headline that, the question, is the NBA pulling strings behind the WNBA relocation? So what's the tea on this?
So I have heard something similar, that a lot of what is holding this up, everyone's sort of looking at the heads of the WNBA and
this
saying,
is, we
pointing
should say,
the finger.
This is the Connecticut Sun being potentially relocated somewhere. Folks wanted them to come to Boston.
Yeah, I guess I'll give the quick guys. The kids call today. They don't call them Cliffs Notes anymore, ladies. They call them Sparks Notes.
Yeah, okay.
The Sparks Notes. The Sparks Notes on it is Steve Pagliuca, former minority owner of the Boston Celtics, made a bid to buy the Connecticut Sun for $325 million plus $100 million practice facility. Mark Lassery, who used to own the Milwaukee Bucks, he has also put in a bid to buy the Connecticut Sun from the Mohegan Tribe, but he would keep them in Hartford, Connecticut. The WNBA has thus far not accepted either bid, despite Mohegan Sun wanting to take the bid from Steve Pagliuca and relocate the team to Boston. The league has so far nixed that deal in favor of something else. They haven't exactly said what. They just said that Boston didn't go through the proper channels. They never applied for an expansion team, which why would you apply for an expansion team? You're within the DMA, or what that is better known as the media market of the Connecticut Sun. So it would be a conflict of interest, thinking they couldn't. They thought the best path forward to bring a team to Boston would be to buy one that's up for sale. The Connecticut Sun are up for sale. But this continues to run into a wall. And on the surface, it looks like the WNBA is fumbling this. And to an extent, they are. They're not completely not at fault here. But from what Chris Gasper has written, from what I'm hearing and, different channels kind of chattering behind the scenes, is that the NBA has much more leverage in this situation than we realize, and that Adam Silver is also a part of the problem, because NBA teams, they have a financial stake in this as well, because they own part of the WNBA. And so it is a push-pull for power. It is a push-pull for what the NBA wants. And right now, I think most of the people involved, like to me, that who's really losing? There's two losers. Well, there's three losers in this situation right now. People are losing out. The Mohegan Sun tribe, which is just trying to take an asset and sell that asset for money that they feel that they have earned and put into it. So they're losing out because they are unable right now to sell the team to the highest bidder. You have players many of whom who have expressed interest in wanting to be in a bigger market, would love better facilities, would love to be in an area where they would get more exposure in a city like Boston. I mean, whether they're Connecticut Sun players, and some, like Tina Charles, have publicly said, I would love to play in Boston. No disrespect to Connecticut. We love our fans here. We love everything about Connecticut, but Boston would be a fabulous place to represent New England. You have other WNBA players who have been vocal, who have come here and played games and say they can't understand. So I think players are losing out on this. And then the city of Boston is losing out on this, right? Like in the state of Massachusetts and the people of New England. And it's all for a power money grab. And the money grab seems to be pretty tightly tied to the NBA as much as it to the WNBA.
Well, that's sort of too bad, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. And it's just what's frustrating. What's frustrating, Margery, is that this is a women's league, and you have a woman in Kathy Engelbert who is in charge of the WNBA. But it seems like Adam Silver is kind of the puppet master behind everything, and she's just the face who's taking the fall. Now, one might argue maybe you need someone with a stronger backbone in charge of the WNBA to say, listen, no, Adam, I'm sorry that this is going to line NBA owners' pockets, and this is going to increase your own personal revenue, but this is about our league. We know how to run it. We're gonna sell this team to Boston, and we're gonna continue to grow this league. But also Adam Silver, like, I know that the NBA is part of this, but keep your grubby little hands off. You guys make enough money. Like, how much more money does the NBA need to make? You're already selling your rights for billions and billions of dollars. Your franchises are worth billions of dollars. Let's maybe allow the WNBA to breathe and operate on its own without having to line your pockets even further.
Okay, let's talk about high school football. We all know it's huge in places like Ohio and Texas and Georgia, apparently. But wow, they're really going crazy at some of these places. This Washington Post story talks about the Georgia Buford high school team, luxury stadium, 15 luxury suites, just like at Gillette, with catering service and monitors. That was like a really expensive stadium down there. They've got one in Ohio. $182 million with a jumbotron, state-of-the-art locker rooms, just like the NFL facility holds 20,000 people. Not as big, but still pretty big. Another one in Ohio. I guess it puts in perspective our little efforts to build White Stadium out there in Franklin Park. This is wild.
I thought the exact same thing, Margery. Like, we are fighting to build, circling back to what we just talked about, to continue to grow women's sports, which is one of the fastest growing, sort of like side parts of overall athletics.
And it's a business.
It's a business.
It's a business.
And you have taxpayers in Texas who are like, oh, you're going to build a $139 million stadium for a bunch of high school kids? Sign me up. Friday Night Lights. Let's get into it. Like, it just blows my mind. But it goes back to something, I think, guys, that we've talked about on this show, that I've talked about on this show a lot, like the over-importance that we place, the outsized importance that we place on athletics in high school and college in this country. And it is not reflected in other places, right? It is not reflected in other countries. Imagine if you wanted to build a new state-of-the-art $139 million high school. I feel like that would come up against so much pushback. Why do you need it? It's not, but you put a bunch of football players on there who bring home the state title, and suddenly people are spending thousands of dollars to get like a luxury suite at a high school game. But also, adults, get a life. Like, if you're like, cool, your kid's there for like 4 years, maybe 6 or 8 if you have a number of kids that are in school. But like, stop putting all of your like old, unresolved feelings about what kind of athlete you were in high school. Stop putting them on these kids, and like, think about their education as much as you think about their athletics.
I would only push back a little bit in that,
you're for this?
No, I'm not for it, but I understand that culturally it's a really big deal. Like our Friday Night Lights here in the Northeast, not as big a deal. We still get a good number of athletes that go on to compete in the pros or go to the Olympics or do all sorts of things. But it is a cultural thing that they value and cherish, and if they want to use their tax dollars to do that, knock yourself out, I guess.
Okay, so my counter argument to that, Sue, is I did grow up in a place where there was nothing to do on a Friday in my little like one horse town, except for go to the high school football games. And like parents were, I mean, it was what you did. Everybody went to the stadium on a Friday. Well, we didn't have lights at my high school. We were kind of
Friday in the dark.
Well, now similar to this, they have completely like redone the football field. Like it has like a press box and better locker rooms and has lights now. I just feel like at the end of the day, as someone I was captain of my pom-pom squad. Not sure if you guys knew that or not.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. But so I was there. I was a part of the whole hoopla and the pageantry of Friday night football and Friday, Tuesday and Friday basketball games and whatnot, like all through 4 years of high school. You know what would have served me better? Like a computer lab that was up to date.
I get it. I understand.
Like, I don't know, more offerings of, now I'm old, so there weren't a lot of AP classes, but like maybe just a larger emphasis on, academics, things that you might actually use.
Well, Margery and I are also old enough to remember before professional sports arenas were the destination that they were. I mean, Sullivan Stadium in Foxborough, I still get a chill when I think about it from that wind whipping and sitting on those benches. And of course, the old Boston Garden where you never knew what was exactly running over your feet, if it was one of the alleged leprechauns that ended up being a circus monkey or something else. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just happy to see upgrades.
Okay. You're just happy to not have rats running over your feet while you're watching basketball?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to leave plenty of time to this discussion. As you can see, I have my secretariat mug here that my staff has very kindly made for me.
I'll be sitting this out, so go ahead.
Because
he is moving like a tremendous machine.
That, of course, is Secretariat winning the Belmont Stakes in '73 by more than 30 lengths, which is a very long way. But anyway, Ron Turcotte, the guy who rode Secretariat for all these years, has passed away at 84 years old. I didn't know what a great guy he was. One of 12 children, was very good about charities. I didn't know he'd been in a wheelchair since the late 1970s because he was back injuries and jockeys. I forget now. I said this before the show.
Yeah.
I think the most dangerous job is fishermen, and then I think it's jockeys after that because they're so often thrown from horses. But anyway, he's died and at 84 years old, and he is the guy that rode Secretariat. So we have some sound from Ron Turcotte. He's talking about one of his favorite races with Secretariat. Now, this was after Secretariat had won the Triple Crown, still holds the record, 1973, for the Belmont Stakes and the Preakness and all that kind of stuff. Here he is talking about the horse Secretariat.
It was a great satisfaction because everybody was saying he wouldn't be ready for that race, and he wasn't that great a horse. He wasn't the greatest, and I always maintained that he was the greatest horse that ever looked through a bridle. He just took off, rode the world record.
Yeah, this was after. They thought, even after doing all this spectacular stuff. And then we have to play the great sound from, and then I'll let you say something here, Trenni. We have to play the great sound. This is actually the end of the Belmont Stakes in '73. And you can look at this on Google. This is what I have I have this picture you see on my mug. See that? That's Secretariat in the Belmont Stakes. But here we have him at the Belmont Stakes when he's pulling away from all the other horses to win by more than 30 lengths, as I said before. Here we go.
Secretariat leads his field by 18 lengths, and now Price of Prince has taken second, and Mike Gallup has moved back to third. They're in the stretch. Secretariat has opened a 22-length lead. He is going to be the Triple Crown winner. Here comes Secretariat to the wire. An unbelievable, an amazing performance.
Okay, one more clip. This is from the movie 2010. If you haven't seen it, you should really see it. It's a real tearjerker. When he becomes the 1973 Triple Crown winner. Here it is.
The lead is now 24 lengths. 26 lengths. 28 and still surging.
Margery's crying a little bit.
I am.
A little tear. You get a little misty.
Okay. I mean, how can you not get emotional about something like that? And you're probably too young to miss the whole Secretariat phenomenon.
I was not born when Secretariat won the Triple Crown. My parents weren't even married.
Oh, God.
They did not marry.
It's a long time ago.
They did not marry until 1974. I was born in 1977, but I did see the movie Secretariat.
Wasn't it great, the movie?
It was a great movie.
Women's movement, her asserting herself, Penny Chenery, the woman that picked Secretariat before he was even born.
I do feel like this is a story that as soon as I saw it, I was like, well, we're going to talk about this come hell or high water.
You're going to listen, Trenni. You're going to listen.
Which is
Marjorie's
fine,
going to talk about it. So get paid either way, right?
I don't have like a lot to add to this. It's really just like gratuitous for Margery. I will say this, Margery, after reading the obituary about Ron Turcotte, I did not realize how I think they described the way that he rode Secretariat, particularly in the Belmont Stakes where he won the Triple Crown, as masterful in how he managed him and like navigated that race to win it with such certainty.
Yeah.
I did not realize, because everyone always focuses I think Sports Illustrated came out with like a list. I don't even remember when it was. It might have been at the turn, like in the year 2000, like for 100 years ago. But at some point, like Secretariat, I think was like in the top 5 of greatest athletes of all time. And so it's always the horse we talk about. Is a horse an athlete? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Until this man died, I didn't know that he was the jockey of Secretariat. You don't talk about what his skill set and how he was such an integral part of Secretariat's success. So I will give you that, Margery. I did learn a lot about what a masterful jockey he was.
Yeah, he was a masterful jockey. Secretariat had a huge heart, as we know from the, literally had a huge heart, and that's what helped us stamina.
All right, we've been speaking with Trenni Casey.
Enough of Secretariat. Thank you for indulging me.
Trenni, the anchor reporter for NBC Sports Boston and BPR contributor. After this quick break, the Dorchester Food Co-op is warning it may close, and we're going to talk with our food policy analyst, Corby Kummer, about the tricky business of community-run grocery stores and more. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy, and she is Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Marcus Brown records music under the name Nourished by Time. He grew up in Baltimore, and his new album draws from the sounds of his hometown.
I always thought Baltimore club music was futuristic, and I wanted to do my version of Dance My Pain Away.
I'm Juana Summers, Nourished by Time's new album, The Passionate Ones. That's on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass Humanities, presenting Voices and Votes, Democracy in America, a Smithsonian exhibition. In Ashby now through September 6th, in collaboration with Massachusetts 250, masshumanities.org. And Babson College. You can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's virtual graduate admissions workshop is on August 27th. Registration at babson.edu/gradworkshop.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery Egan with media maven Sue O'Connell, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are joined now on Zoom by Corby Kummer, Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, a senior editor at The Atlantic, and a senior lecturer at Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Hello, Corby Kummer. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, I'm hoping you can hear me since my camera's not cooperating.
Oh, yes,
we
we're
can
fine.
hear you.
We're fine. We
You're
got
frozen,
you. We got you.
But your voice is alive, which is a good transition for us,
That's
Corby,
right.
into our topic of expiration dates on food.
Yeah.
And this is a big topic in my household, and it's hard to be right because it's so confusing about what an expiration date means, what a suggested use by means. And there's a story in the New York Times about, do they really matter? What's your take on this? Can you explain to people the variety of messages we get about when our food allegedly is no longer edible?
You would see a tight smile if the camera worked, because it's almost impossible to find your way around expiration dates. They're mostly for the sake of manufacturers and retailers to rotate stock. They have almost nothing to do with actual food safety, unless they are for infant formula and fresh meats and fish. That is where you should really pay attention to sell-by dates. Otherwise, there's an effort now to make a national law so that it's either use by or sell by. And you should pay attention to the best if used by date. That's about it. But mostly, Sue, you can win any household argument by saying, these are done entirely for manufacturers to rotate stock and retail stores. And unless it's infant formula or meat or fish, you can pretty much ignore them.
I had a bottle of Paul Newman's Italian dressing in my refrigerator, and I realized it was the only dressing I had, and it was like 6 months expired.
And it was opened. Was it opened or closed?
Open.
Because it's also whether it's been opened or closed conversation.
Well, it was opened, and it was 6 months. I just thought I'd try a couple of droplets, and it was fine. And it was 6 months past the date. So sometimes some things go way past the date.
Yeah, condiments like relish, mustard, ketchup. They have a lot of vinegar and salt, which are preserving agents.
Mm-hmm.
So things that have a lot of acid and salt in them. You think of home canning pickles and such. It was a way of keeping cucumbers fresh throughout the winter and having fresh produce throughout the winter. So yes, you're absolutely right to use them, and especially oil, vinegar dressings.
Yeah, you have to give the taste test, I think. Although it makes you feel a little creepy, though. I was, the whole time I was eating that salad thinking, am I going to get sick from this? But of course I didn't.
No, you didn't.
You're
not.
You're
not going to get sick from it. But you do have to be careful of the other things that, so don't just go crazy, Margery.
I won't
don't
go
have
crazy.
time to fill in for the rest of the fall. Okay? Trying to get your act together.
Okay. So we've got all these wild supermarket battles going on now. Stop and Shop is lowering its prices, trying to do a rebound because they had been shutting down some places. We got Market Basket still in an uproar, opening a new place in North Andover, celebrating that. At the same time, they're firing people, and lots of people are upset about their exile of Arthur T. DeMoulis, the man who probably made Market Basket what it is. And
Right.
And meanwhile, you got other places like Costco keeping their hot dog prices at $1.50, and Arizona tea defying inflation. So give us the picture. What is going on here in the world of supermarkets that we should be concerned about? Oh my goodness!
Did we lose Corby? I think we lost Corby.
Did we lose Corby altogether?
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll keep talking. Yeah. So the stories that we're talking about, of course, and as many of us know, the supermarkets have a very...
Oh, he's back.
Oh, he's back.
He's back. Did you hear my question, Corby? What's going on with all these supermarkets, all this stuff, price?
Well, there's a lot of loss leader going on because the supermarkets are worried about their losing business. And so they have to try to get customers back through the door. And Stop and Shop is saying, hey, our home base is Massachusetts. We care enormously about this. But it's mostly just because food prices have risen dramatically. Customers are going away from Stop and Shop and other markets that haven't specialized on price. Where there are markets like Market Basket, like the new Aldi, which is a German-based chain, and Walmart, they take away and they suck away customers from Stop and Shop and traditional chains. So I kind of salute Stop and Shop for saying we're going to have a lot of loss leader items in the next couple months because we want you back.
And the challenge, Corby, for the shopper, of course, with, the supermarket business is a low, small margin business, meaning, that it's amazing when you think about buying grapes from South America to eat and how little they really cost when you get right down to it. So there's money to be made the entire way, but it's pennies sometimes, and sometimes a fraction of a penny on profit for some of these items. So therefore, it also means, are they cutting not just Stop and Shop, but are they raising prices on other items, especially the dreaded checkout aisle with the gum and the single serve of a Diet Coke or a bottle of water, or any of those items where they actually, the front of the store, where you're making the biggest profit on, and they're likely to grab you there. So you have to be savvy about that when you're shopping, right?
Well, oddly enough, the press releases didn't talk about any concurrent price rises, now that you mention it. They just talked about, rotisserie chicken is the famous Costco loss leader.
Yep.
And it continues to be a Costco loss leader. Arizona iced tea, Axios did this piece about certain loss leader items are sacrosanct.
Sacrosanct, yeah, because the aluminum, right? That should be going up because the aluminum from Canada, but the guy that runs it's keeping it right where it was. Corby, so there seems to be not a big backlash against Market Basket at all for what is going on with Arthur T. Demoulas and this apparent takeover by his sisters. The North Ender store opened. There was all this celebration. There's no boycott. So what are you laughing at there, Corby?
It is the story that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Decades.
So, there's been a new version of Market Basket that opened right next to another one in North Andover. And they're all of the sisters who are now against Arthur T. They all showed up to smile and make happy talk with the loyal North Andover customers who also showed up and were perfectly happy to have a bright, new, multi-million-dollar market invested in their community. And the Globe singled out one lone protester who was trying to rally support for Arthur T. George Similara, 68 of Bill Recca. And he was out there with a trumpet and had made signs saying, "Save Market Basket, bring Artie back." And he was very disappointed that only people even paid any attention to him.
So, there's a lot of outrage, of things to be outraged about right now. I mean, it's sort of like, where are you going to go protest? Are you going to protest this family business that for generate what? We're now in 30 years of Market Basket Demoulas news. Can the outrage machine keep, or the outrage, I don't mean machine, but can the outrage keep going?
That's right. It's 2014, the halcyon days, before we could even imagine what is going on in the United States of America. It was going to be happening ahead of us. Okay. All right. So what about this Dorchester Food Bank? This is a tough one.
The co-op, the Dorchester Food Co-op.
It's a really depressing story. And when we're talking about supermarkets, Stop and Shop has the huge market footprint to be able to absorb these loss leaders. So of course does Costco. Sue rightly pointed out, and they're probably jacking up prices on the other side that you're not even noticing while they're advertising their new big loss leaders. Dorchester raised millions of dollars in private funds and philanthropy to open a worker and customer-owned co-op. And it's a great idea. They started in the 70s. They were Cambridge Food Co-op. They, Alston. They were essential parts of life for a lot of customers who sometimes had to come in and work an hour a month, but you got lower food prices. And because it's so hard to run a food market with fresh food, Dorchester says we probably have to close. $2 to $3 million from fundraising and grants that they got, and it took them 10 years because it's hard to raise money, we know. Are running out, and they can't meet their weekly nut and their costs. And it's just a kind of awful, sad story that big chains are driving out a locally owned, locally serving food co-op.
But I don't get what the difference is, though, because those big chains were always there, weren't they?
I don't think that there were that many near Dorchester because I don't know and I didn't see their business plans.
Okay.
But I don't think they would have planned to open next to a lot of competition that was likely to give them a big run for their money from the beginning. We watched Daily Table, the fantastic independent grocery store that was entirely around lower prices for fresh food and fresh produce, going for others. And Doug Rao said, we just ran out of money, but it was so successful it just couldn't continue, is the way he's trying to say it. But it's enormously difficult to run a food market, which is why we're all going to be looking at each of the boroughs of New York City if Mamdani wins and tries to open a city-run food market in each of those boroughs.
Yeah, that was a big part of his campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But didn't everybody poo-poo that idea immediately? I mean, wasn't that sort of shot down, or you think he can actually do it? Because Wu was asked about it, and she didn't think it was happening here. What do you think about those city?
Anybody who runs a city and knows what it takes just to keep bus service going, and Mamdani is saying, let's have free buses. With what budget is what the main questions are. So, how do you run a food market? Especially, I don't think that it's a paradise in every borough to get fresh food, but it's completely unlike the rural food deserts where it's really challenging and really in need of help.
And folks, Corby, this is one of those things where it sounds like a good idea until you actually have to understand how the grocery business works. Right. And also the worst thing in the world is to have fresh food that you buy that goes bad. I mean, that's built into the business model because it happens. But at the same time, if you are already on this low profit or low margin, which you have to make a living even if you're a co-op, and you have leftover food because you're unused food you're going to waste because you can't get the customers in, that's a complete disaster, right?
Yeah, and then we get to the sell-by business. But reading the figures of the weekly costs for this Dorchester Food Co-op, a woman named Lita, who was the head of it, was saying that it generated $10,000 to $13,000 in sales each week, and they would have to triple that figure in order to survive, and that they need $500,000 to survive just to reach the time next summer when they could reapply for grants. Anybody who runs a nonprofit, which I do at the Aspen Institute, knows this sort of gap before you can apply for new grants. It's like sickening to find the bridge funds, and she's saying they're probably not going to find them.
Well, that's too bad. But Corby, thank you very much, as always, for joining us. We didn't get to talk about Robert F. Kennedy today, but
we will.
We're going to talk about him a lot tomorrow with Ashish Jha, who runs down for Brown University, who used to run vaccines during the Biden administration. I'm going to talk to him about that.
Thank you, Corby.
So, Corby, thank you very much.
Corby is the Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute and Senior Editor at The Atlantic and Senior Lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. Coming up after a quick break, famine has officially been declared in Gaza, and we'll talk with United Nations spokesperson Olga Cherevko about the situation on the ground and the global response. I am Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She is Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
In preparation for winter, state ecologists have been building a hotel for snakes underground.
Doesn't look like much, but below the ground, the way these boulders are placed, those holes will actually create passages all the way down to the bottom.
In efforts to protect a key pest-controlling reptile, this particular pile of rocks could save a species. I'm Hannah Loss. That story later today on GBH's All Things Considered.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And American Repertory Theater with Passengers, a blend of cirque, music, dance, and superhuman skill. The New York Times writes, extraordinary acrobatics provide gasps of delight. amrep.org. And the MBTA commuter rail, helping riders skip the stress of city traffic and parking. Just take the train. You can plan your trip at mbta.com/massbytrain.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Margery Egan. She's media maven Sue O'Connell. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim and I will be back tomorrow at the Boston Public Library, joined by Boston Mayor Michelle Wu at noontime. After that, Ashish Jha, who's Dean of Brown University School of Public Health, will tell us, as I just said, all about vaccinations for children, vaccinations for pregnant women, plus Oscar winner Chris Cooper and author Ben Shattuck, who have worked together on this wonderful new movie, History of Sound. We're going to talk about that as well. Two more quick things. On Wednesday, we'll be joined by Senator Elizabeth Warren and Josh Kraft, who's running for mayor of Boston as well. But right now, we're going to talk about what is going on. Leading authority on food crisis, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, said the Gaza Strip's largest city is indeed gripped by famine and that it's likely to spread across the territory without a ceasefire and an end to restrictions on humanitarian aid. Israel rejected the report, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calling it a quote-unquote outright lie. We're joined now on Zoom by someone on the ground in central Gaza, Olga Cherevko. She's spokesperson for the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Gaza. Olga, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks, Margery, for having me.
Olga, I know that for some people saying that famine is in Gaza, some people might be saying, well, no kidding. We expected that. But the word famine in this case has a very specific meaning, and the declaration of it comes after a complicated process. Can you just set the table in a way for us and talk a bit about what goes into defining something as a famine, and what does it mean when that happens?
Well, there are, of course, various processes and various analyses that go into this, and the thresholds that have to be met and reached in order for this confirmation to happen. And of course, when the confirmation happened, we, as horrifying as it was, we were not surprised, because it's something that we've been warning about for many months. So the thresholds that basically have been reached to confirm this were severe deprivation of food, a percentage of children with malnutrition, and then the number of deaths from starvation. So all of those three thresholds have been met when the confirmation had been made. And of course, the danger now is that it will very easily spread to other parts of Gaza unless the situation changes rapidly.
You know, a lot of the world disagrees with Benjamin Netanyahu, who says this is overblown. I mean, the Europeans are talking about it. We were talking before the show. I'm stunned by the fact that the United States is not making a bigger deal about this. This is a man-made famine. I mean, I don't mean to make this all about America, but are people there surprised as well? Previously, we wouldn't do this.
Well, I think it's very clear that it seems that every call for action, every appeal that we have made has fallen on deaf ears. And so far, it's extremely clear that not enough has been done and to change this and to address this. And we have been shouting from every rooftop into the void, it seems. So of course it's I think if a confirmation like this doesn't spur to action, I don't really know what will.
Olga, what are the rules of the game? Could other nations that are expressing their concern, like European nations, could they come into Gaza, or is it all up to Israel to allow that to happen?
Well, of course, whatever change would take place here requires political will. And that political will is up to the states with influence. And of course, this is who we have been trying to appeal to ensure that these pressures are made and that international law is respected and that we are enabled to do our job.
Olga, anytime I post something on TikTok about Gaza or make a commentary about Gaza, someone will immediately, especially about the famine, someone will immediately, or the aid, someone will immediately push back and go, well, Hamas is stealing the food. The food isn't getting to the people who need it the most because of what's happening with Hamas. And the reality is it's a much more complicated situation than that. Many things have been debunked about that. But the security around delivering the aid, which Israel has a hand in, is not securing the ability for people to actually get the aid that gets there. And like anywhere else, with any bunch of humans, when there is a crisis like a famine while you're at war, I love how everyone always likes to think, well, there's all one group. Well, no, you end up trying to take care of your family and yourselves and fighting to get the food for yourself rather than your neighbor because you are in this desperate situation. Can you debunk some of the statements and feelings people have when they hear this and they immediately want to blame Hamas for the inability of Palestinians in Gaza to get the food?
Certainly. It's very simple. We can compare two things. One is the weeks of the last ceasefire when we were unable to do our job. And in those weeks of the ceasefire, we saw situation improve. We were able to feed nearly everyone in Gaza. We delivered services. We were receiving lots of assistance and supplies, enough supplies. Still, even back then, it was not enough to do everything that we needed to do, but it was enough to address some of the most urgent needs of the people. And so the indicators then were speaking for themselves because we could utilize the system that we have in place that is being used in many other crises in the world. It's not just in Gaza, obviously. And we know how to do this job well. So when we had the conditions in place to have enough assistance entering and when we were enabled to deliver that assistance at scale using our mechanisms to ensure that it reached the people in need and those who were most vulnerable first, we were reaching those people. And we could say with confidence that it was clearly getting to the people in need. The situation we have now is there's two things. One, there's not enough aid entering. That's very clear because it is a fraction of what was entering during the ceasefire weeks. So that, coupled with the impediments that we face to pick up the supplies and deliver them to the people, and these impediments include things like multiple hour delays and every mission that we go on. I've participated in multiple missions like this. And I just came back a couple of days ago from one such mission where we were picking up supplies from the crossing. And I think it might have been the shortest mission I've actually been on, and it was 12 hours long. So those 12 hours, you spend most of them waiting for the authorization to move to the next place, or you're sitting at the crossing for 7 hours. And there are strict restrictions on every step that you make and every step in this process. So that's why these missions end up taking 12 hours or 18 hours or 20 hours or more sometimes. Another thing that we face is that the routes that were given by the Israeli authorities are very few. They're extremely dangerous. Most of the time, the roads are completely destroyed. We've faced situations in which they are impassable. Of course, there's a lot of danger around. There are military operations around us. And not forgetting the fact that people continue being killed and injured along these routes, where they are coming, as you said, because they are desperate. And it's the only option they have at this stage to feed their family, basically.
Olga, what are you hearing and what have you seen yourself and your colleagues in terms of what this looks like on the ground with families, women, kids without food? Oh my goodness!
Oh,
I
we
think
lost
she's.
Olga.
I think she
Okay,
has. I think she has frozen.
Yep, we'll work on that as we do that. I mean, the crisis in Gaza continues, and this is the challenge
here she is.
that we have.
I think we have her back.
Sorry, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're back.
I
Olga.
was asking you, Olga, if you heard me, what you and your colleagues see and hear when you are in delivering this food. What does it look like delivering food to people who are starving?
Most of the time, because of these long-standing restrictions, it has created an environment that is very uncertain, an environment in which the communities no longer trust the system and don't trust that the aid will reach them. So many times when our convoys, as soon as they hit the road, they are met by thousands of desperate people who basically take immediately all the supplies from the trucks because, again, they are now in survival mode, and the only choice they have is, in order not to starve to death or not to watch their child starve in front of their eyes, is resort to these desperate measures. So the only way to stop this, and again, I will revert back to the ceasefire weeks, where we had no such issues. Where people trusted the system because we had enough assistance entering and we were unable to deliver it. So the only way to address this is to increase the volume of supplies, the types of supplies that are entering, and to remove these restrictions that we face and these impediments that we face on a daily basis so that we can deliver it safely and predictably.
You know, you talked about the political pressure before to do something. So what can people do that are listening to you now? Should they write to their Congress people? Should they write to the White House? What should people do that feel as though we're watching this unfold and doing nothing?
Yeah, I think there are many things that they can do. One of the things I think that is important is that Gaza remains in the spotlight of the world watching and making sure that this does not become a forgotten crisis, because I think we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to humanity, to our humanity, to do something to make sure that the next generation that is growing up here without education, without a childhood, at least has a chance to grow and to have a life that any human being, that every human being deserves to have.
You know, the last thing is, and we have only about a minute left, but I have read where beyond a certain point, children will not recover fully from this. That why not? Well, I think there's two things, because obviously the starvation crisis past a certain point, and especially in childhood, it makes a lot of damage to the system, to the immunity, to future prospects of the child growing up healthy. And then, of course, the psychological trauma that the children are exposed to on a daily basis is. And there are definitely lives here that they will not recover. And they will have this trauma for the rest of their lives, and possibly even for the next generations, because it is so deep and profound. Well, Olga, we thank you very much for taking the time to be with us, to keep this in the spotlight and to talk about this. And the frustration, I think, on the part of many people here is real, and I hope it changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
From Deir al-Balah, we've been speaking with Olga Cherevko. She's a spokesperson for the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Gaza. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, some states are coming together to Trump-proof their public health efforts, Massachusetts among them. We're going to talk with Michael Curry. He is the head of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, right after the news. I'm Sue O'Connell, in for Jim Browdy, and she is Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Support the news that drives you. Donate your old car, truck, boat, or other used vehicle to GBH. Visit our website at gbh.org/vehicle donation for more info.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And M. Steinert & Sons Pianos, the region's authorized Steinway dealer, presents the return of the Symphony Hall Piano Event, Friday, September 5th through Sunday the 7th at Symphony Hall, msteinert.com. And Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in Porter Square, offering private cooking events for your next team-building activity, family reunion, birthday party, or night out. You can learn more at cambridgeculinary.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Margery again. Ahead on hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, we'll start with Michael Curry, NAACP board member and CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, on what's driving persistent income segregation in Boston. We'll talk about what Massachusetts is doing to chart its own path on public health, separate from Trump's vaccine skeptic Health and Human Services Agency.
And I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. Then we're going to end this Monday going back to school. We're going to open up the phone and text lines to check in with parents and kids gearing up for the new school year. Are you savoring the scent of freshly sharpened pencils or stressing out as you try to get your kid to finish their summer reading assignment? What about all those new clothes and gear you got to get? Call or text next on the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump signed executive orders this morning aimed at ending cashless bail policies. One of the orders specifically targets Washington, D.C. This comes as the federal government continues its takeover of D.C.'s police department. Here's WAMU's Alex Coma.
Trump signed executive orders threatening to withhold federal funding from the district and other cities unless they reinstitute cash bail.
They thought it was discriminatory to make people put up, kill 3 people lying on a street. Any street, all over the country, cashless bail. We're ending it.
But D.C. lawmakers are skeptical of how Trump's order will work in the district, as only Congress has the authority to overturn locally passed laws or withhold previously approved funding. The D.C. Council abolished cash bail back in 1992. Under the policy, a judge decides whether a person who's charged should be released to await trial. Supporters say cash bail disproportionately affects low-income communities and people of color. For NPR News, I'm Alex Coma in Washington, D.C.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia is back in federal custody and now set to be deported to Uganda. NPR's Sergio Martinez Beltran reports.
This was expected. Last week on Friday, Abrego Garcia was released from federal custody in Tennessee pending a trial on separate criminal charges. Shortly after that, the government said that Abrego Garcia had been served with a notification requiring him to report to the ICE offices in Baltimore today. And that's what he did.
The case became a flashpoint in President Trump's immigration policy standoff with judges after Abrego Garcia was wrongfully deported to El Salvador earlier this year. The administration wants to increase deportations and to that end enlist thousands more immigration agents. Alex Helmick of member station WABE says a facility in Georgia is set to train many of them.
Deportation officers find and remove non-citizens who can no longer stay in the U.S. for a variety of reasons. As the Trump administration ramps up deportations, the Republican Congress approved more than $76 billion to speed them up. Immigration and Customs Enforcement plans to hire 10,000 deportation officers by the end of 2025, and many of those new recruits will be sent to the coastal South Georgia town of Brunswick to attend the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, which is set to double the number of instructors focused on deportations. The official who runs training for ICE told the Associated Press it has cut its Spanish language requirements to reduce training time by 5 weeks. For NPR News, I'm Alex Helmick.
U.S. stocks are mixed this hour. The Nasdaq is up 48 points at 21,544. The Dow has fallen 233 points, or roughly 0.5%. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The first woman of color to lead the Boston Latin School is now joining the Boston School Committee. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu announced that education consultant Rachel Skerritt will fill a seat on the committee. Skerritt is coming aboard as the district moves forward with a contentious plan to close a fifth of its schools over the next 5 years. She says she knows the shutdowns are very serious, but so is money.
Funding sources are increasingly unsure and precarious. And I also think as we try to define, what the level of educational experience and the quality of educational experience that we want for every student in Boston, we really need to be thoughtful around where we direct our resources.
The Skerritt School Committee term begins next month. GBH Business News, Burlington, Mass-based Keurig Dr. Pepper is buying Dutch coffee and tea company Peet's for roughly $18 billion. The takeover is expected to generate some $400 million in cost synergies over the 3 years. As of 8:30 this morning, London time, Peet's stock was up over 17%. Keurig Dr. Pepper, which owns brands such as Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, Snapple, and Green Mountain Coffee, has seen shrinking sales at its U.S. coffee division, mostly due to a decline in the shipments of its single-serve coffee pods and Keurig coffee makers. The deal was announced today. It was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Red Sox, Baltimore, in Baltimore for a start of the series with the Orioles tonight, 80 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for dedicated and forward-thinking individuals to join their growing team. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. I am Margery Egan. I'm with media maven Sue O'Connell. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Jim Braude is back tomorrow. We're going to be at the Boston Public Library with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu tomorrow at noontime. Ashish Jha, Dean of Brown University School of Public Health, all about vaccinations. Oscar winner Chris Cooper and author Ben Shattuck with a new movie, The History of Sound. Wednesday, Senator Elizabeth Warren will be at the Boston Public Library, as well as Josh Kraft, who's running for mayor against Michelle Wu. He'll be there at noontime. But we're joined right now on Zoom by Michael Curry. He's CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, and he's on the board of the National NAACP. Michael, thank you very much for being with us as usual.
Hey, anytime. I'm glad to be with you both.
Hey, Michael. So there's a new study, a new report out on residential segregation by the Boston Indicators. The good news is Boston's racial diversity has been growing, but the bad news is that segregation based on income is a record high, and that means people who are affluent are living near people who are affluent, and people who are not affluent or on the lower end of the economic ladder are also living together. Why is that happening, and how is that impacting our society?
Yeah, one is I think we always know that there are determinants that really drive who lives where and who has access to better supermarkets, better schools, better jobs, safer communities, healthier communities. And unfortunately, that has always been driven in large part by income. And as you have a city that's more diverse, but that diversity doesn't extend to economic diversity or income diversity, you find that more people, particularly poor people, Black and brown folks, are clustering in communities, but are still dealing with those same conditions. And wealthier people are clustering and living in their own neighborhoods with the same access and the same services that others don't have the benefit of. So, this study coming out is sort of a reaffirmation that we've not cracked the code on how to create a truly equitable society where people live with each other across incomes.
And the other challenge to this too, Michael, I realized in reading the article that was in the Boston Globe about it is, and I talk to my daughter about this all the time whenever we're trying to choose between purchasing a gym membership or something. And one gym membership is really, really, really expensive. And then 2 levels down, it's not as expensive. And she's like, well, what's the difference? I said, well, the really expensive one is trying to stay away from everyone else, right? So the rich people want to be with rich people. They don't have anything really that much better than the next level, except that we can't afford to be there, so therefore it makes it exclusive. But, obviously this impacts people who are economically challenged. But what this means for affluent people, especially their kids and young adults, is they have no idea what they have, because they don't compare it to anything else. If they're always in the VIP area, if they're always able to get backstage to the Taylor Swift concert, if they're always able to ski on closed mountains that are VIP only, and therefore the empathy that they might be able to develop, it robs them as much as it robs people who are not able to access some of the bennies that they get, right?
Well, it's so interesting you say that, because I just was the keynote speaker for the incoming medical students at Tufts Medical School. And my opening comment to them is, you're all not special. And I know that was hard for them to hear. And I said, the reality is you're sitting in this room because you've had opportunities that positioned you to be in this room. You went to the right elementary schools, the right middle schools, the right high schools, and then ultimately the right colleges that teed you up to be at Tufts University Medical School, when there were many others who should be here next to you and with you. And the reality is that their life circumstances made it not possible for them to be here, that are no less smart than you are. So to your point, yes, absolutely. We create the haves and the have-nots, a tale of two cities, a tale of two countries, using the Dickens reference. And then all of a sudden we are surprised that we're lacking diversity within our C-suites and our medical schools, our law schools, in halls of power. There's a reason why, and as a part of that, housing is a critical piece of that we segregate housing. There's no affordable housing in communities, and we are driving affordable housing out of high-income communities. This is all part of the broken system we have in this country, and we have it in the Commonwealth as well.
You bring up a great point about the schools that these kids went to, because if you go to a big urban school system and you're a smart kid, it's kind of not very cool. You kind of better hide your light under the bushel or whatever that line is. Whereas if you go to a really, a Wellesley or a Brookline or a Lexington or something, it is cool to be smart. So when you want to fit in as a teenager and a preteen, I think that makes a huge difference. You know what I mean?
Well, we also...
And just to add to that, so I worked in admissions at Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota. I left Latin Academy, was admitted to Carleton College, which I think at that time was number 12 in the country in the listing of colleges. Could not live in the woods, so they told me, you might want to look at Macalester. It's in the city of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it's a good school. So I ended up going to Minneapolis, St. Paul. The reason I tell the story is when I got into the school and I worked in the admissions office, they would say, well, we want to get diversity, so we're going recruiting. I said, so when you go to Massachusetts, where do you go? They said, well, we go to Buckingham, Brown, and Nichols, North, South, River Country Day, Chestnut Hill. I said, that's not diversity. You might find one or two Black families that live in those communities. I said, why aren't you going to inner city schools? And to your point, Margery, they weren't doing it, and it was leading to them struggling to get the diversity they were looking for. Yeah. We have to think differently. There's talent everywhere in every community, and people are waiting to unlock that talent.
Yeah, I often think about my daughter went to the John D. O'Brien's in
Boston, great school,
which just got listed as one of the best high schools in Massachusetts, as it has been consistently. But I often think that if Boston Latin and the John D. O'Brien were combined as one school, what kind of experience it would be, because many of the O'Brien's is the most diverse. It was, at least when my daughter was there, high school in Boston. And yes. Latin often has a lot of kids who come from private schools, a.k.a. white kids.
Which drives me crazy.
And test into the high school. But to your point, it's like, there are smart kids everywhere. Right. And if we give them the opportunity to learn and mix in with everybody else, then the experience is sort of like the Metco experience to some degree, which is fraught. But at the same time, people at least get to experience what other people experience, and that makes us a more whole human being, I would hope.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people, including myself, are kind of in panic about what RFK Jr. and his crazy ideas about vaccinations are going to mean for COVID vaccines for little kids, pregnant women, and stuff like that. But Massachusetts is part of this group that's looking at independence from what the federal government does. So tell us how this will work and what it could mean.
Yeah, so when I served the governor appointed me during COVID to the COVID task force. And of course, I work in healthcare, but I wasn't familiar with all the systems, the agencies that oversee vaccines. And I was introduced to this entity called ACIP, AICIP, I think it is. I forget the acronym, that really oversees vaccines in this country. They give guidance around how and when vaccines should be deployed and what the best protocol is for vaccines. And I remember learning about that, and just a shout out to the phenomenal physicians that were a part of that group that educated all of us. And of course, this under RFK Jr., he's dismantled that group and brought less credibility to that group because now it is not science-based, it's not evidence-based. That being said, under RFK Jr., now states, public health departments across the country are having to think differently about how to get the information they need around flu season, which we're entering, or COVID season. Now that we know COVID is still here, and we need to make sure that we know what the vaccine distribution should be and what vaccines make sense. And unfortunately, we can't rely on the federal government to do that. So I want to give a shout out to Robbie Goldstein, the Commissioner of Public Health. He reminded me, we were talking about this. He said, Michael, we've always met in the Northeast region. We've always met as public health departments in this area. And we do it because we want to strategize about infectious disease, want to strategize about resources, we want to think about how we're using technology. We really want to organize our resources, our limited resources across states. So this is actually nothing new, Margery. What it is that there's some urgency to it, as they can no longer rely on the Center for Disease Control for some data, because a lot of that data is being taken down. And one of my biggest pet peeves is race and ethnicity data. John Snow 101, cholera. We got to know where the disease is, where to go, how to address it. And we're losing the data that helps guide us to that. And credit to Commissioner Goldstein and his colleagues in New England and some others along the East Coast. Pennsylvania, I think, is one that have organized to do what, in this case, the federal government may not be willing to do at this point.
Michael, I think going into this season, this vaccination season, and I think about before COVID, before Donald Trump, how difficult it was just to get some of our loved ones to get vaccinated, to get to the free flu shot. Obviously, in many Black and brown communities, the come by it honestly hesitation regarding trusting the government and trusting medical authorities, and then just the usual, let's be frank, men in our families who are reluctant to go get health care, to go get vaccinations. And now here we are with, all of this chaos around vaccinations. And even if you're just checking in a little bit to hear a news report and you're thinking, well, I don't want to get a vaccination anyway. They don't know what they're doing. I'm not going to go. I mean, this must make your head explode. It's making my head explode. And I don't have that many people I need to manage, but trying to get these tried and true and tested vaccines to the people who need them the most. How are you guys addressing this?
It is actually scary, right? Because I don't want to be, this is not an exaggeration when I say this. This is truly life or death, right? As we know that when people don't get vaccinated, it can cause their lives. And we know that there's already a built-in mistrust in our healthcare system that comes from history. If you're African American, there are many examples of historical exploitation or neglect or abuse within our healthcare system. People of color, poor people have that experience. Many people know about medical errors, vaccinations, science. Do we trust science? And then all of a sudden you get leaders who don't live by the science. They're not evidence-based. They don't have a training and an expertise in that area. They're not qualified. And all of a sudden they're the rest of us on vaccinations is pretty scary. And unfortunately, that's where we are right now. And to your point, I'm mortified that people that we all care about and love may be caught up in this craziness about not trusting vaccines and then not coming into a community health center, to any other site to get their immunizations. We should all have to obligate ourselves to combat this anti-vax sentiment that is coming out of Washington right now.
And can I just say one personal thing? Sure. I had a virus 2 weeks ago. We don't know what it was. It wasn't the flu. It wasn't COVID. I was out sick for a week. It triggered my asthma. I'm still coughing. I still feel lousy, right? So if there was a vaccination for whatever I just had, I would be first in line to get it. So if you think it's just the flu or COVID's like a cold, you know what? It isn't, and it's going to impact your life, especially if you have something else under the level there.
I'm just wondering, though, Michael, if you want to get your child vaccinated between 6 months and older as a child, or you're pregnant and you want to get a vaccination, do we know whether we'll still be able to get them and have insurance cover this, or is this up in the air?
Well, I mean, let's go with trusted sources. So the American Academy of Pediatrics has issued recommendations for COVID vaccines for children, including all children ages 6 months to 23 months, saying that they should be fully vaccinated. So that kind of goes counter to what Kennedy has offered as a recommendation that healthy children older than 6 months should not get the shot. Let's go with trusted sources, right? We did this survey with the Museum of Science and our good friends there during COVID about who people trust. And we need to go back to those people that we trust. The Mass League did a survey with them. We trust our providers. We trust the people who are in charge. We trust medical associations that have to research and publish the data and give us guidance. So let's go with the American Academy of Pediatrics. Let's go with your primary care provider, which I hope everyone has. And that person will guide you to the vaccination schedule for your children.
But what about cost? I mean, that's what I'm worried about, that they'll be able to, because the federal government is saying you don't need it. Well, the insurance companies can say, well, then we don't have to pay for it. And if you're a pregnant woman, there was a lot of consternation about that last time around, but you're supposed to get them if COVID if you're pregnant.
Well, I would worry about that more if I was in Missouri or Florida.
Okay. So you think we'll be covered here?
But I think that there's effort, right? I think insurance companies, and I think I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield for 16 years. Some of these things become guidance, and they typically take their recommendations from the CDC.
Right.
But in a state with Maura Healey, with Secretary Kiami Mahania, who's here with me right now, I'm at Lynn Community Health Center, and he's doing health care. He's providing care here today. We have leaders who understand the science and who understand how important vaccinations are, and they'll work with these other public health officials in other states, and they'll marshal resources, and they'll put, I wouldn't say pressure, they'll have conversations with our health plans in the state about doing what's right for Massachusetts and not taking the guidance from the federal government.
Good. That's very good to know.
We're talking with Michael Curry. Michael, switching gears to what's happening in D.C. and possibly in Chicago and possibly Baltimore, with the president sending the federal guard in under the guise of law enforcement. And also at the same time, he held a press availability this morning, the president did, talking about no cash bail and misrepresenting actually what no cash bail is and who actually has access to it, which is at the judge's discretion, and it's usually low-level crimes.
Not usually murderers.
Not murderers. And, I grew up, every time I would make a big deal of something, my mother would say, don't make a federal case out of it. And I never knew what she meant. And now, unfortunately, I do, because the president seems to be making a federal crime out of carrying an open container of alcohol, which we might all agree would be a bad idea, but we don't think it's a federal crime. Can we get your reaction to what is happening, and it looks like is going to be happening across the country with this deployment of the National Guard?
Yeah, I mean, for any of us, and I know both of you are historians about this stuff, this is the playbook. And I want people to be students of history and go back to some of the other examples in world history where people abused their power, where they marshaled the resources of the military, of the Guard, and started to trample on and ignore constitutional rights. I need you to know that history so that you know what's coming. And when I was on a call this week with the NAACP National Board, we were discussing the playbook that is D.C. and putting guards on the cities in D.C. and threatening to do it in cities like Baltimore. We were with the mayor of Baltimore just a few weeks ago at an NAACP board meeting. This is actually a playbook we got to be aware of, because we know that crime is down in many of our cities. It doesn't mean it's perfect. doesn't mean we can't do better, but we know that this is optics. This is about President Trump doing what he typically does, which is trying to get some attention and getting scoring cheap points by attacking local government. I thought it was fascinating when the governor of Maryland, the governor of Maryland said that I thought the party didn't believe in trampling on states' rights. I thought this was a party of states' rights. And yet you have a president who's doing just that. And we know we don't want the National Guard being deployed by this president in Chicago and Baltimore. We want them out of D.C. Let cities manage their challenges by themselves, and then be partners with them so that you take their recommendations on how you can partner with them to solve these very complex issues. We don't want to mass incarcerate again. That's the other thing I think both of you are acutely aware of, that if we let this play out the way it is, we will experience the same thing we experienced after the Clinton crime bill: mass incarceration of Black and brown people, more acceptance of police violence in communities. And I am deeply concerned about that.
Well, it does. I don't mean to sound hysterical, but it does seem to me that there is from the Trump administration a war on Black and brown people, because they're going after cities, the crime areas in cities, and there are many poor people in those areas, and many of those people are poor people who are Black and brown. And I think the hope is that white America is not going to give a damn because it's a bunch of Black and brown people getting harassed in inner cities of America. I mean, this between this and the Smithsonian, and between Harvard University demanding that some biologists take down a Black Lives Matter sign that they've had up for years. I mean, this is pretty blatant racism, isn't it?
It's so funny you said it. I say there's a war on the truth. There's a war on DEI. There's a war on accurate and factual American history. There is no such thing as Make America Great Again when you know that 60 years ago that Black folks couldn't even walk into many of the hospitals in this country. When you go back, Make America Healthy Again, that before the Affordable Care Act, 49 million people didn't have health insurance. So what did they do? They got sick, they suffered, and they died too soon. That Medicaid and Medicare was passed 60 years ago and allowed and expanded access to health care. That the Affordable Care Act broadened access to coverage and services and gave people primary care home. So to your point, I don't know when America was great because I know American history, and I damn sure don't know when it was healthy. But there's an attack on all things truth, and I think by consequence or circumstance, that's an attack on Black people, because when you attack Medicaid and Medicare, when you attack the truth, when you attack our museums and history, when you attack the history of slavery from 1619 to 1865, when most Americans can't even tell you that history in any great depth, but they can say, give me liberty or give me death. They can say all these slogans from the American Revolution or from this world's history, but have literally whitewashed and cleaned out the history of slavery in this country, which is as equally as important as anything else. Yes, there's an attack on Black people.
You know, Michael, I have a really hard time, wrapping my brain around many of the people who are, at least online, saying they support the National Guard moving into cities. I know D.C. is a separate situation because it's a district and it's a federal district, who didn't really care about crime ahead of that live in many areas that are somewhat safer than a Chicago and somewhat safer than a Boston. But at the same time, I feel enraged at some of the Democratic leaders where they can't say what you said so clearly, which is none of us want crime. We all want crime to be reduced. We understand some approaches to reducing crime that actually work. Sending in the National Guard, sending in armored cars, sending in fully armed soldiers has never been the answer for long-term solution. And also just in the wake of us recently coming to terms with the Charles Stewart murder and what happened to Black and brown boys in our neighborhoods, it just makes my mind blown.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. If you really want to deal with crime, you wouldn't just be in Roxbury or Southside Chicago. You'd be in Newton, and you'd be in all these suburban neighborhoods, because there are drugs in those neighborhoods too. There's crime in those neighborhoods too. They're just not on street corners, and they're not poor people. So the reality, I remember, and I've said this on previous shows with you, that when Bill Clinton was coming to the NAACP convention many years ago, I'm the chair of advocacy and policy. I recommended that Bill Clinton come, and he apologized for the Clinton crime bill. Oddly enough, interestingly enough, the staff posed that to the Clinton folks, and Clinton came, and at that convention, he apologized for the impact of the Clinton crime bill on Black and brown folks, particularly Black men, how it mass incarcerated large numbers of Black men in the prison for mostly nonviolent drug offenses that were happening in other parts of the country, including not in cities, in rural and suburban communities. I say that to say this. This is the same path. That as more we militarize our communities and have armed forces coming in, they're not coming into Newton, and I don't want to pick on Newton and Wellesley, but the reality is they're coming into neighborhoods like Roxbury and Mattapan. And the reality is they're going to mass incarcerate, arrest, detain, trample on the rights of citizens who tend to be Black and brown. And we should have learned something from the Clinton crime bill that we clearly haven't. Now, I say this last thing to your point. When I talked to some Black folks back then, and I remember I was the canary in the coal mine with many others, saying that this was a bad idea, they said, well, we want crime and drugs out of our neighborhood. You got to know what the deal with the devil you're making is, what the Faustian bargain is. You're making a deal to bring in armed guards, forces that are not trained for urban crime and urban situations and how to deal with diverse communities. And the outcome will be the same as the Clinton crime bill. So we got to be careful whether you're Black, brown, whether you want drugs and crime out of your neighborhood. Make sure that you're doing it in a smart way and not trying to be tough on crime the wrong way.
We'll leave it at that. Michael Curry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Talk
Anytime.
with you soon. Michael Curry is the CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, on the board of the National NAACP. Coming up after a quick break. Let's take a little break ourselves, a little pivot. We're going to talk back to school grab backpack. All of your anxieties, your excitements, your hopes, your dreams about the new school year and the end of summer. I'm Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. She is Margery Egan, and you are listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Marcus Brown records music under the name Nourished by Time. He grew up in Baltimore, and his new album draws from the sounds of his hometown.
I always thought Baltimore club music was futuristic, and I wanted to do my version of Dance My Pain Away.
I'm Juana Summers, Nourished by Time's new album, The Passionate Ones. That's on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, presenting Van Gogh, the Roulin Family Portraits, featuring Van Gogh's portraits of the Roulin family and the deep bonds of friendship behind them. On view through September 7th. More at mfa.org. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds. New properties are added often. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Sue O'Connell in for Jim Browdy. Jim will be back tomorrow, and we are broadcasting on youtube.com/GBH News. So, while many of us get to enjoy the last freedoms of summer this week, teachers and parents are already boldly staring down the end of the season, prepping classrooms, soothing kids' many back-to-school anxieties, buying all those expensive new clothes, organizing. So we're opening the lines to end the show today with a back-to-school grab bag. What are some of the things you're dealing with as we head into a new school year? What are your anxieties? What are your excitements? The things you just don't expect. How are you managing? Did you pick the wrong week to quit sniffing glue sticks? Yeah. I mean, are you happy to get rid of the kids? You're going to be out of the house. That's great. You're not paying for the summer camp anymore. They're not around your feet anymore. You're glad to get rid of them? Or are you beside yourself because the average cost, listen to this, I was stunned by this. The typical Boston parent, according to Boston 25 News will spend $686 per child on back-to-school shopping with the clothes and the stuff you have to buy, the notebooks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then the teachers always hit you up for Kleenex and markers and all that kind of stuff to bring to the school too. That's a lot of money. If you got like 4 kids, you are talking big bucks here. Are you anxious about the back-to-school clothing? You're fighting with the kids about the back-to-school clothing, or are you, like I said, just so thrilled to get the kids out of the house and back to school that you don't care whether they're wearing clothing or not? 877-301-8970 is the number, 877-301-8970. Sue and I have been through all phases of education.
We have
here.
indeed.
Kindergarten, preschool, kindergarten, junior high, college, etc.
Yep.
So we're here to offer advice as needed, or at least just share in the chaos of it all. The number is 877-301-8970. I mean, when I was a kid, I was excited about going back to school. I thought that was great. And I was excited when my kids were going back to school because I could get them out of the house.
This is the funny thing, though. You're a little bit older than I am.
Yes,
but
I am.
I do
Don't rub
recall
it in.
In the 60s and 70s, by the time we got to August, I mean, there was no camp. I went to Camp Menorah for 2 years. I did as a charity. But there was no camp. We had 1 week's vacation.
Camp Menorah.
Camp
That's
Menorah.
a riot.
I did up in Ipswich. It still exists. And my dad had 1 week's vacation, which we would go to either New Hampshire or Cape Cod. And that was it. The rest of the time, I was left to be footloose and fancy-free, running around Revere Beach and Shirley Ave in the 60s and 70s. And by August, I was just in the house watching the Gong Show with my friends in the air conditioning. So my parents were thrilled to have the opportunity to get me out of the house and back to school. But now these kids today, these damn kids today, are so overscheduled, and there's so much you have to do with them. So I imagine it's super expensive in the summer, especially for working parents who can't take time off. And they must be thrilled that even though it's expensive to send your kids back to school, it's less expensive than having them have to go to camp and do all those things that you pay for.
Well, that's one of the big complaints. We have 14 weeks when they're out of school and you have to find something to do with them. And if you're a parent with like 2 weeks vacation, and obviously a lot of people have to work now, everybody has to work now basically because everything's so expensive. How do you finance that? That's really difficult. So at least the public schools, you don't have to pay for them. Not yet.
Not yet. And of course, the other challenge, if you're a parent, is reconnecting with that parent group that you may have been able to avoid. One of the fun things about parenting is that you have to be connected to other parents whom you may not have much in common with, except your kids are in the same school or play the same sports. And now you've got the text chains. You've got the WhatsApp chains that happen that may have been dormant all summer long, and then suddenly you're getting the notification that you have to sign up for this or sign up for that, and your life becomes just exponentially more complicated with responsibilities, and you have this other group you have to work with, which is the other kids' parents.
That's true. The organization around school, after-school activities, the organization around sports, keep it straight. But, they're talking about shutting down some of these Boston schools because there's not enough kids going to the Boston schools anymore. They got buildings that are half empty and stuff like that. One of the bad things about non-neighborhood schools like Boston is you don't have the other parents in the neighborhood to pick up the slack.
Right.
You can't kind of join on a phone chain if somebody's going to be...
Well, you do in the elementary schools. The elementary schools you do...
some of them.
Yeah.
In Boston, you could be like you can live in Hyde Park and wind up in school in Brighton, which is tough,
877-301-8970. You can call or text. We're talking about your back to school excitements, your anxieties, what's on your mind for the fall.
Some of us have children that do not want to go back to school.
Right.
And then that's like pulling teeth when you have to go to school and your kid won't get out of the car.
Yep.
And your kid gets in the classroom and hides under a desk and won't come out from under the desk. And then you're mortified because you've been a bad parent because you're raising a child that won't.
But then if you talk to one of the teachers, they'll say, my kid never went to school either. So you understand you're all in the same boat. Okay, Chris from Boston. Chris, welcome back. Or welcome to another call-in segment of Boston Public Radio. What's on your mind?
Well, my son is out of school, but I'm hearing across the country there are a lot of immigrant families that are terrified about getting their kids to and from school. In Los Angeles, they're developing plans to try to get people to walk other people's children to school. protect school buses from raids, and I'm afraid that's going to happen in Massachusetts.
Oh, God, I hope nobody's going after a school bus in Massachusetts, although you never know what's going to go on here. But, Chris, you're absolutely right. You've been seeing that all the time, that immigrant families are afraid to do anything, whether it's go to the supermarket or whether it's go to their job or whether it's go to school. So I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety around that, too. Chris, thank you very much for the call. We have a text from someone that says she's from West Roxbury, and her kindergarten kid doesn't go back till the 8th. Oh. However, her older children are going to be back on the 4th. So I guess they start late in some of the kindergartens in Boston. But she says, I don't have the, it's summer vacation excuse anymore to allow extra screen time or ice cream or counting going swimming as a bath.
Yes. Yeah, no, or hosing them off in the yard. Another one of my coworkers is famous for that if you just hose them off in the yard, it counts as a bath. Yes, the great summer excuse is deteriorating away right in front of us.
So here's a couple of texts. This is Chris from Shrewsbury. My 5-year-old is starting kindergarten this week, and my 3-year-old is starting preschool. My wife is back to school as a teacher today. I'm so sad to see summer end, but it's great for the kids. And then another texter says, let's be more positive. Other parents are parents that you don't often depend on when you're a crisis, number one. Number two, we're trying to build community in our country with this idiot as a president, so let's talk about working more in community. And number three, teachers are not begging you to, disappeared for a second, teachers are not begging you to give them money for Kleenex, otherwise it comes out of their pocket because your school taxes don't pay for it. Yeah. It's true. Sometimes though, you can feel like if you're someone that doesn't have a lot of cash,
right,
and you feel as though you're barely making it to school, then you get hit up for all the
paper
stuff you're supposed to. Yeah,
yeah.
And I think that can sometimes be tough when the, for people that are a little embarrassed that they don't have the money for that kind of thing.
877-301-8970. Listen, some of my best friends I met through my daughter's friend group, their parents, and then some of the people I never want to see, I also met through those groups as well. I'm still scarred from coaching middle school girls soccer.
I didn't know you coached middle girls.
Yeah, the rec league. It scarred me. It really did.
Why?
Because of all the things you hear about parents. I mean, we were the lowest.
Screaming from the sidelines.
We were the D team, right? There was the A team, the B team, the C team, the D team. We were the D team. So it was basically made up.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. That's why I was the coach. I don't know a darn thing about soccer. But at the same time, these were girls who wanted to play but didn't know how to play, or their parents made them play. And I'm still scarred by saying things like, "Well, no, I'm going to make everybody play fairly. Everyone's going to get the same amount of time." I'm like, your daughter is not getting a scholarship. I can tell you right now, she is not going to be a pro player at soccer because she's on the D team in middle school.
Yeah.
So yes, I still have a list.
I was saying before the show, when they had the kindergarten soccer teams in my town, the funniest thing was when the kids would shoot the ball or kick the ball into the wrong goal.
Yes.
They were confused.
Like ants chasing a crumb on a field. Yes.
Here's some texter just talked about this ad, and so we're going to play it for it. This is a 1996 Staples ad that would play every back-to-school season.
It's that time of year again. They're going back! It's back to school time at Staples! Over 7,000 supplies at guaranteed low prices. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Staples. That was easy.
That is a good ad, though.
It is.
It is kind of fun to go in with your basket and you're going around, you're getting the notebooks, you're getting the markers, you're getting all the stuff for the kids. It's sort of a big, and they're so proud of it. They have their little backpack.
My daughter thought that Staples was a museum. And when she was little, she loved buying and getting office supplies. She still does. And, they would do the pop-up section of Post-it notes where you would have this aisle of Post-it notes.
Oh, yeah.
And she would call
Post-it notes.
Ruby called it the hall She's like an office supply hoarder, so I still have all of her stuff.
Well, you've got the different colored Post-it notes too.
Yes,
the
and
pink, the blue, the yellow, not just yellow.
One of every single type. So it is exciting, but I do often feel bad because it's very expensive, and you have a couple of kids in there, and they're trying to get the latest things, and of course the trapper keeper changes, and the backpacks change, and you've got this whole fashion and hipness that you have to deal with. I mean, I stayed back in sixth grade. I repeated sixth grade. I did. And
were you bad to your teacher?
No, I wasn't. I just didn't go to school.
Showing up at school?
I didn't go to school.
You didn't go to school.
I didn't go to school.
That could be
That's
a problem.
That's a whole nother hour. All in elementary school. Finally, they decided to keep me back. And the culture change between the sixth graders I was with and the sixth graders I ended up with really cracked me up because it was a much different group, and I had to totally get my new. I don't even think we had backpacks. We still used to put the rubber band around our books. Remember, Margery?
Oh,
Remember
yes.
the little hook band? We'd get our books, and we'd get our paper bags, and then we would do book covers, and then we would carry our books with this rubber strap. Amazingly, we got through school without water bottles or backpacks. And look at us. We're successes today.
That's right. Backpacks were not around when I was going to school. Our number is 877-301-8970. School is going to be starting for most places next week. How are you coping with this? Can you afford the $686 per child that is estimated it costs in Boston to send the kid their back-to-school shopping essentials? Are you glad to get rid of the kids? Are you sad that summer is over? Here's some good texts. I cannot speak highly enough of the organization of Cradles to Crayons, based in Newton, where I have volunteered. They support low-income families with age-appropriate clothing and school supplies. Amazing support to the Massachusetts communities. I mean, that's another...
They do a great job.
They do a great job. They're a great organization. And a lot of people go, especially if you're boys, because they don't care what they wear. You get a lot of these secondhand stores and get a lot of great clothes for your boys until they get to be old enough to care about this kind of thing, so you don't have to spend $686 per kid. And this other texter is talking about the fact that they this conversation is getting the person so upset they're suffering from PTSD. I guess they didn't like going to school.
Yes.
No.
Or talking to the other parents. That's the other challenge, of course.
Well, in sports, I think it's difficult. When they're little, you can kind of be in solidarity when they're little because everybody's pretty bad in kindergarten, first grade, second. But suddenly, I don't know, around second or third grade, maybe even sooner, you can tell the kids are going to wind up being good at sports, and then the differentiation, the competition comes in, the envy comes in,
right.
All this kind of stuff.
Okay, here's one of my other favorite things, the forms, right?
The forms.
A texter is saying, the thing I dread most are the forms. I have 4 kids, so it's a lot of form filling out every year. Can't they copy and paste? And now everything is an app, multiple app for each kid's schools, etc. I need an assistant for the forms and apps alone. I mean, it was bad enough when they would send it home in their backpack and the kid would forget to give it to you, and then it's picture day and they're not ready for picture day because you didn't get it out of their backpack even though you know it was there. And now you've got these apps and these alerts. I can't even imagine what it would be like.
When did they stop getting? Do they still have the LL Bean backpacks that you can send back every year and get a new one?
I don't know. I don't know what the return situation is.
Yeah, they used to have the LL Bean backpacks that supposedly they would last forever. Yeah. So you had your backpack.
I don't have it today, but I usually have my daughter's that's used in middle school or elementary school because it was so expensive. I continue to use it. I get made fun of by other reporters and journalists. It's an LL Bean backpack with an R on it for Ruby, and I'm carrying it, so clearly it's not mine.
Yeah.
But I'm going to use it until it falls apart because I spent so much money on it.
Well, that was the rule. The rule was that you could get your backpack, and if it began to fall apart, you could return it to them up in Maine. I don't know if they do that anymore, but that was always, because the backpacks are expensive. You could save a lot of money that way.
Go ahead, 877-301-8970. We're talking to you about heading back to school. You can write or text or call us. How are you prepping? Are you prepping? Are you dreading? Are you excited? Or you just have no kids and pay no attention to any of this?
There are all these stories from your station, Sue, from NBC Boston, how you can budget for your back-to-school essentials so you don't really go broke. But they talk about the fact that most people end up getting out their credit cards and spending a lot of money on going back to school, and you can carry a huge balance with a credit card and get really screwed. I mean, like I said, if you've got 2 or 3 kids, and you're paying almost $700 a kid. And what are you paying the $700 for?
Well,
people used to go to Old Navy. That was cheap. We're not supposed to do that anymore.
No,
because
you can, but you still. I mean, everything just is expensive, and especially as you know, the kids. I don't know if this is still true, but like you never wear shoes in the summer. Kids wear sneakers, but then they grow so quickly, and you have to replace the sneakers. Plus, there's a lot of sales right now, right? So you want to make the purchases, but it's hard to take advantage of the sales if you don't have the money to buy the things in advance. So it is a challenge.
You know, somebody's emailing about snow days. We don't really get that many of those anymore because the snow hasn't been so bad.
Right, and they're making the argument probably that we should be able to just do Zoom days instead of snow days. But you and I think the kids should be in school for like 5 million years anyway, Margery. You and I agree on that.
I worry that we're lagging behind. We used to lead the world in education. We're not leading the world in education anymore. You hear all these stories now about how third graders in Massachusetts, and we do lead the country in most measures of education, but a lot of third graders can't read because they're not teaching the right way to read. I do get worried a lot about our education. Maureen on the road. Thank you for calling, Maureen. What's up?
Well, I guess I just want to say I homeschooled my son. He is long graduated now, but let's give a shout out to people doing that.
Okay.
That is a thing, too. That is, and I heard you guys talking about, right before you took me on about you're not being happy with, like third graders not reading and things like that. And I heard over the weekend on NPR, there was a piece done on children and the psychology of learning, and they were talking about the whole multi-sensory thing, which is what I did. It was like classical education. And, I really wish that we could devise some support and reform for public education to get in on some of the knowledge that we've gained through research and infiltrate it into whatever system you're using.
Yeah, I think they need massive reforms in the public school of America. I think that the model's not working anymore, and it needs to be a model. But Maureen, I'm always curious when you do the stay-at-home thing and the homeschooling. How did you work it out? Because did you have a job, or did you? Outside the home, or did you just concentrate on the kids? And how did you do it? Did you get one of those books that tells you every step to take? Tell us.
Okay, so, it's been some time now since my son graduated, and I called you a long time ago, you and Jim, because my son, during high school years, he pretty much took classes at Massasoit Community College, and he entered his freshman year with 70 college credits.
Wow.
Okay, so, I did. It was a commitment. I was the stay-at-home teacher and stay-at-home mom, and I followed a classical curriculum.
What is the classical curriculum?
Okay, so the classical curriculum is when kids learn and study what's happening in English, science, art, all at the same time.
Okay.
So they have a frame of reference. And, I just think it's fabulous, because it is learning supporting itself in a time. And, you keep repeating it over the years, but you go further in depth.
But then your kids could participate in the town rec league soccer team or the town baseball team and all that, so they'd have a chance to get out there. And there'd be other get-togethers for other kids that were homeschooled. Because that was the socialization part is the stuff that always kind of freaked me out about homeschooling.
Yeah, you haven't met my son, that's why. When people used to say that, I'm like, they're like, aren't you worried about him socially? I'm like, have you talked to him?
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
we did fun things for science, like he belonged to 4-H.
Okay.
And he got to deliver a goat. They did autopsies. The person that ran his 4-H club was a vet, and they did autopsies. It was really educational. And we thought about doing high school, like we went to the Commonwealth School, and, he went there. And, this is back, he's 28 now.
Okay.
And we were very secular driven, so we didn't really fit with the groups because they they want you to be religious. And
yeah, I'm laughing, Maureen. I'm laughing with you because I homeschooled my daughter as well through the Commonwealth Academy, which is the Massachusetts virtual school. There are options for parents, public school parents, and there are also private options that you can. So you're not doing it all on your own. You actually have teachers and assistants and online learning. But one of the biggest battles I had on one of the groups, the support groups, was a parent complaining that they were being the curriculum included the Greek gods and the Roman gods. You know where this is going. Why we weren't teaching more about Jesus and why we were teaching about Athena and trying to explain that this is a classical education, was kind of lost there.
Well, Maureen, congratulations. I'm glad your son did so well, and good for you. I admire people that can do the homeschooling because obviously it takes a lot of time, but a lot of people do it. We know a lot of kids that graduated from homeschooling and did extremely well. We have a informed texter who insists that LL Bean is not replacing the worn bags.
Oh well, I'll have to
anymore.
Keep carrying it then.
But
don't make fun of me if you see me with mine then.
But a texter says, I had 5 kids in school at once, and I would buy them new backpacks when they changed schools, just like Sue. I went with the LL Bean. They lasted forever, but they would wear their old elementary school backpacks in their senior year, and it was hysterical.
Yep.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. You know what I also miss about elementary schools and schools is the lost and found pile.
Oh, yeah.
I always would love at the end of the school year, you would look at this pile of a shoe. A shoe, a lot of gloves, a lot of, and the teachers would be like, please come find your kids' stuff.
I live 2 doors down from a K-8 public school in Brookline, and every day, even in the summertime, the playground is littered with
stuff,
shoes and shirts and coats, you think.
All right, let's go to Heidi in Franklin. Heidi, welcome.
Hi, I was just tuned in because I just left my welcome back session for the Commonwealth Virtual Academy.
There you go. Oh, there you go.
I'm a music teacher, and I've been a music teacher in Massachusetts for 25 years, and I joined the Educational Co-op, which is the Connecticut Academy, 4 years ago, and it is a wonderful opportunity for families that the public school of their district might not work for them.
Right.
So it's a wonderful choice for children academically, emotionally, physically, and it's an incredible school. It's 3,000 kids, K through 12, and so I just wanted to add.
Wait a minute,
It's an actual school that's in Western Mass, but it's a virtual school so that you can attend from home.
Okay,
it's from home, and you have actual teachers. And they teach, except you don't have to. And Heidi, correct me if I'm wrong, but you attend it, and it's a public school. And for many kids, we've learned during COVID and during the stay at home, obviously attendance has been an issue, but some kids actually do better at home. We found out.
Yeah.
Right, Heidi?
Yes, because there are learning coaches, whether it's a parent or another adult. So it's a virtual school. But it's a Massachusetts public school. So we're part of the MTA, but they have classes like I teach live lessons. I see my kids every week for 30 minutes, and it is structured the same as like brick and mortar, as they say. But and it's owned by Pearson. Like the curriculum is Pearson, and it's very highly structured. But when you see these families and the success of the children, when it's just a different platform.
Great, Heidi.
Heidi, we got
to go.
That's
choice.
Thanks so much. Good luck
out of
this
time.
fall to you, Heidi. Thanks for your call.
That was
really
a
appreciate
good
it.
understanding of the Commonwealth Academy.
Absolutely. Lots of options for parents out there.
Options.
All right. That's it for us today, Margery.
We're done.
If you want to keep up with us 24/7, we've got the podcast, or you can check out the TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, the long national nightmare begins, and Jim Braude is back at the BPL. Jim and Margery will speak with Brown University Dean of Public Health, Dr. Ashish Jha, plus Boston Mayor Michelle Wu will be taking your questions from noon to 1, and Oscar-winning actor Chris Cooper and writer Ben Shattuck join them to discuss their new film, The History of Sound. The crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Connolly, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineers, John the Claw Parker, Bill Pia Ciccelli is on the board today, and Brad Lewis ran the YouTube stream. Our executive producer is Jamie
Bologna.
I was going to say something about zucchini.
Oh, zucchini.
Jamie zucchini. So stay tuned for the Culture Show with Jared Bowen, starting after us at 89.7 GBH. I'm Sue O'Connell.
Yes,
thank you so much, Margery.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun doing the show with you. I really appreciate coming in.
So you guys keep using all your vacation time. I'll just keep coming in.
That's right. Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston. She's great. Thank you very much, Sue.
Thank you.
And Jim is going to be back tomorrow, so we're all very excited, sort of.
All right. See you next time, Margery.
Bye.
I picked the wrong week. Quit sniffing glue.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And American Repertory Theater with Passengers, a blend of cirque, music, dance, and superhuman skill. The New York Times writes, extraordinary acrobatics provide gasps of delight. amrep.org.